Me a couple of months to convince you of that, didn't it?
Yeah, it did. Yeah, because this has been sort of like a 3 year journey for us. We're always wanting to go back to the UK to reconnect with family and that, but yeah, we just weren't sure when we met you how the program would work and how it would benefit Charlotte, knowing that we were going back to the UK and that your program was sort of set up in Australia, so we weren't sure how it was going to work. So yeah,
because
it's been one of the.
Oh, sorry, Ray. As you know, I am British and the kids are British, so we've wanted them to reconnect with my side of the family over there. So it's kind of been a 2-3 year plan, and then you came into our world and obviously know Charlotte and her football and wanted to help us with that, and to be able to do the plan here and then take that with us is just going to be amazing to do that remotely. Yeah,
it was one of the things I felt like banging Ben's head against the wall sometimes, because I was like, your wife's British, your kids are British, they've got passports, and I know you're going back for family reasons, and I know you're looking to go back for work, but trust me, this programme works no matter where you are on the planet, so I'm so happy you did eventually join us on the programme. Now, from a mum and dad's perspective, I'll probably ask this one to Nikki first, being the mum. How have you found it's helped Charlotte over the past couple of years with the football? What's the one big thing for you?
Yeah, I think more so much not only her school factor side of things and, with having the GPS tracking and honing in on the statistic side of football, they celebrate more on the football side of things. But for me, her mental game has improved a lot, and having, that not only the resilience, but seeing where she can achieve with other academies in England as well, because all the statistics are on there with her GPS tracking. So you can do well here and know you are able to see all the stats and compare and gauge where you're at is good. And also just the experience that you give her, that 1% to 5% of extra, information or experience that you've had that teach her other things on the field to help improve her game has just been fantastic as well. But we'll go more into the football. That's just, for me, I think her mental game has improved a lot, and having all those stats to go along with it and compare to not only people in Australia, but like you said, academies in England or around the world, and just gauge where you're at. Yeah.
That's amazing. Thank you for that. It's such good to have that sort of different points of opinion, because I know mums and dads and families don't always think the same, and it's good that you've got those different opinions, and it's good that, it's evident to us when we first discovered Charlotte how well-rounded she is, and I think it's thanks and it's a testament, because I know, having 2 daughters as well, there's a lot of hard work that goes into these kids, and we dote on them, and we just want to give them an opportunity. And I just want to say on camera as well, how super proud I am of you guys as well, because I know what you two have gone through over the past couple of years, and more so Ben as well. The stuff that you go to on a daily basis, just trying to support your kids in a dream, and it's a testament to you, Nikki and Ben, and I'm so proud of what you have done with it.
Thanks, Ray.
Thanks, Ray.
Ben, so what's your opinion? What's the one big thing that you've seen? And I know, Ben, you're not just a parent, but I know you're also a coach as well. What's been the one big thing for you, for maybe any other parents who are considering joining a Pro Player Papa? What's the one key thing that you've seen that's benefited?
Well, touching on what Nikki said, the GPS tracking's been really good. Just to see, I suppose the comparison overseas is the main thing, but she obviously loves wearing the GPS tracker, and she gets a lot of joy out of seeing how she goes from session to session, especially in games. That's obviously tracking distances, how many Ks she runs in a game, and then she's able to say to me, "Oh, Dad, look, I ran X amount of Ks this in this match," and then you just see the improvement. But it's got her in a better mindset too on how to look at the game. Before we were on your program, obviously we're playing for a club, and they don't go to the meticulous detail that you do. Things like healthy eating, looking after your body, recovery after you've done a heavy session, making sure that we're even doing recovery, running type work so she's able to get the miles in her legs, but also able to recover those muscles after having a tough session or or a long game. It's just the meticulous detail that go within the program. Like you've talked to us about the 7 pillars that you have, and obviously match analysis is one of those things in that program as well, which I've found really helpful, because as a coach I can look at it from the other side of the fence as well as a parent, and you can sort of look at where her game is going, which is going in a really good direction. But there's things that I picked up in those match analysis that I didn't really think of, but when I go looking back at footage, I'm like, yeah, that makes sense. And like some of them sort of semi-major things, and then other things are just like little things we just need to change and tinker, tweak. And it just made a huge difference to her overall performance. So.
That's amazing. It's so good to have those two different perspectives from both you and Nikki. Now, Nikki, just because a lot of people will be interested in this, but obviously when I did speak to Ben, when I first met Ben a couple of years ago, and he explained that he didn't want to join the programme because you had plans to go back for family reasons back home. You're originally from the UK and you were looking at potentially going back for work. But can you tell all of our listeners and followers where originally you are from in the UK?
So I'm from Birkenhead. So anyone that doesn't know where that is, Liverpool, Mersey River, Birkenhead.
So I was like super secretly excited when I found that out when I first met you. And obviously I first met Charlotte and I seen her running around in an Everton jersey, and I'm like, no.
That was from my uncle. My uncle said that, the one Evertonian in the family.
Because obviously we do have a lot of good contacts in the game in the UK, but also around Europe as well. But I was super pleased to discover that when I found out from Ben many years ago that the plan was 2024 to head back to the UK, but also to be in and around the Liverpool area. It made me feel super excited, thinking that maybe one day we could help you open up an opportunity, whether it was at Tranmere Rovers or Everton or Liverpool. So it really, really pleased me. Now, Ben, obviously you are Australian, and obviously you're going back to be with your wife who's from the UK, and the kids have got British passports. Are you excited to go and live in the UK?
Yeah, I am. I'm really excited. It's going to be a great journey for our family. Just a new experience. Obviously, I've met a few of Nikki's family, but I'll be able to meet all of them. It's just going to be a great experience. And I've been a football supporter, fan, player.
Before you met me.
Before I met Nikki, and obviously the home of football. It's going to be good to immerse myself, go to a few games, and obviously just get to know Nikki's heritage really, and the kids are really excited about it as well. So.
Now, I know this growing up in Liverpool where it's football crazy. Nikki knows it because she's from there as well, and I think you get it as well, Ben. But this is one of the tricky ones that can be quite controversial sometimes. But I say to a lot of families that, like, if you really aspire for your son or daughter to make it as a football player, there comes a point in time where, for me, you've got to move to Europe. Because if I had a son or daughter who was playing rugby league and you were to ask me where's the best place for them to live and play, I would say Australia, 100%, without a doubt. But if you're playing football, for me, whether you've got a son or daughter, I would definitely say you need them to be in Europe, in Spain, in England. We're just very, very fortunate. I think you guys feel privileged and lucky, Ben, the fact that you already plan to head back for family reasons and for work, that Charlotte now actually gets to finish her little last bit of development, playing and training in England. Are you happy with that?
Yeah, we are. She loves playing football, and we just want what's best for her. And I just think the development that she'll get in a country that lives and breathes and immerses themselves in football, it will just benefit her. Mentally. Yeah.
What's one of the things, Nikki, just to finish off, we've got a few minutes to go, but what's one of the things that you're looking forward to for Charlotte and her developments in her football in England, whether she goes on and plays for Liverpool, Everton, whoever she goes on and plays for when she's older? What's the one big thing that you wish for her?
Oh, look, and purely speaking from a mother's perspective, because I'm not as football mad as you lot are, but I think for me, just to, she always gives 100%, if not more, in all that she does. And just for her to be happy and do what she loves, and, give it a red hot crack. And yeah, I think she'll succeed in anything that she does because she's always had a good head on her shoulders and she works hard. And I think if she makes it, fantastic. If she doesn't, I think she's still going to be around in football in some capacity because she lives and breathes it and it's her passion. Yeah.
I've told her 100% if she doesn't make it as a pro footballer when she's older, she's got a job with me at Euro Football Star. That's
Done deal.
So Ben, as a dad, who I know I do it as well, we dote on our daughters and we'll do anything for them. What's the one thing that you really wish for Charlotte in the next couple of years?
I suppose coming over to England, I think some of the differences between the English game and the Australian game is like physicality. And I think the thing I'd like to see in her is obviously work out how to combat that and just work really hard because but she's got a great base, but I just think being in such a great environment in the UK, I just think she's going to go from strength to strength with playing against good players, whatever league she plays in, and also just the coaching I think is going to be first class, and I just think it's going to take her game to the next level, whichever level she plays at,
Yeah, I'm super excited. I think I shared this with you guys on the phone a couple of years ago when I went back to the UK, and I hadn't seen the girls and the women's game in England for probably 5 or 6 years because of COVID and everything that went on. And for someone who coached in the WSL, and I coached Leicester City's women's team for the season going back over 10 years ago, to see the level it's at now, I've just been blown away. I just cannot believe where the girls and the women's game's gone, and I'm so excited for Charlotte to be lucky the fact that, one, she is British and she's got a passport, she's going back for family reasons, and you guys are in a fortunate position to be able to do that, but also for it to be able to go and live and breathe and just to finish off that development. And wherever Charlotte ends up, I'm convinced she's going to be a success in football. I think she's going to be a success as a player, and I think, to be honest, I think Charlotte's got a bigger picture than this. I think she's going to do something even bigger than playing when she's older, and if I've got it my way, she'll be heavily involved with us, helping us promote the women's game and the girls' game and making people realise that anything's possible with hard work.
Absolutely. She's a pretty special kid, even off the football pitch.
She is. I've been very, very fortunate to work closely with you guys and to see the effort that you guys put in, and I'm very blessed myself with my girls, and just seeing Charlotte and her effort levels she puts in, and just seeing her videos on a daily basis, and everything I've asked her to do, she's gone above and beyond, and I just feel privileged to be involved in a small percent of helping her to hopefully achieve that dream in the next couple of years. And yeah, it's going to be super exciting. So before I let you go, guys, because I know it's Saturday night and you're probably going to be heading out, can I get a prediction from you for the Real Madrid versus Borussia Dortmund game? So Nikki, can I get a score prediction?
You're asking me.
Yes.
I'll go
So
with
Real Madrid.
Real Madrid.
What score do you think it's going to be?
Against who?
Borussia Dortmund.
2-1. Real Madrid.
2-1 to Real Madrid. Ben, you'll give me your analytical country view. What's the score?
It's going to be 3-1 to Real Madrid. And I think Bellingham will score the first goal.
Bellingham first goal, Real Madrid 3, Borussia Dortmund 1. I think one of you are going to be right. That's my prediction, 2-1 or 3-1. So look, guys, obviously I know I'll see lots of you because we get back to the UK 3 or 4 times a year. We're closely going to follow Charlotte because she's still on the pro player pathway until she's at least 16. She's on a scholarship with us. We hope to keep her on longer than that, but hopefully she doesn't need us past that. But look, a big thank you. It's been amazing having you guys on from a mum and dad's perspective, not only to the benefits of the pro player pathway, but some of the things that you have gone through over the past couple of years. And a big thank you from me and everyone at Euro Football Star for being part of this programme as well.
Thanks, Ray. And as always, we appreciate your support of Charlotte and development too. Really appreciate it.
Thanks. So guys, that's me over and out from the Raymond's World podcast. A big thank you for joining us on this mini episode, and a big thank you to Nikki and Ben. and we'll be in touch on our next episode in the next couple of weeks. Hi everyone, it's Raymond Wood from the Raymond Wood podcast. I am super excited to bring one of our players all the way beaming back live from Brisbane in Australia. I'm currently in London, in Wembley, ready for the Champions League final Saturday the 1st of June. And I believe we've got Maya Allsop on the line. Hey Maya, how are you?
Good, thank you. How are you?
Very well, thank you. Now for our listeners who are watching on in, can you just tell everyone your age, where you are from, and the position that you play?
Hi, I'm Maya Allsop. I'm currently 14 years old. Will be turning 15 in July. And I'm living in Logan currently, and I play 6th position.
Very good. Now, you've been involved in football since what age? What age did you start playing, Maya?
I started playing at 9.5 with my dad as my coach, so don't really know if that counts, but
That's good. And you were from Yeppoon, which is up in central Queensland by Rockhampton originally, and you played community-based football. Now, just to explain the reason why we've got you on our podcast and why we're doing this mini episode, is just to show with a little bit of hard work and consistency on how anyone can make it as a football player if they follow our pathway. Now, we obviously met your mum through Gary Skinner, who was one of your coaches. And I'll just get it on record. Unfortunately, Gary Skinner is a Chelsea fan. So he's not a Liverpool fan like me and Maya. Just to remind Gary Skinner of that one. Now, you obviously, I worked with Gary Skinner up in central Queensland many years ago. And I was introduced to your mum and to yourself through Gary, and he said he was a player up in central Queensland that had a little bit of potential, but needed some help with the football. Now, we actually got you onto our professional player pathway just under 12 months ago. So for everyone who's listening in, can you just tell us a little bit about how you found the programme and what's been some of the best parts so far?
So I was training with Gary and he told me about you, and I was so excited and I was so thankful that I was part of the program. It's just so amazing. It's helped me immensely. Like, my training's gone from only 2 training sessions a week to up to 14, 15 hours, which is amazing. And then I've gotten this opportunity to move to Brisbane from Yeppoon and play at such a high level. And it's just helped me improve so much. The portal, it's so great. It shows me what objectives I need to work on before my games and stuff like that. It's just amazing overall.
So from your opinion, Maya, this is a program that you believe anyone can work from anywhere on the planet? Is that what you're saying?
Definitely, yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing. Now, for our listeners and people watching this podcast and tuning in, we've got a remotely based program called the Professional Player Pathway. And on the Professional Player Pathway, players from the ages of about 8 and 9 all the way through to 23 years of age can join us. We've got 7 pillars to the program. The reason why the program was created and designed was by me. I've worked in the game of football for over 25 years. I've worked for some of the biggest teams like Liverpool, Leicester City, Paris Saint-Germain. I used to work for some of the biggest coaches in the game. I used to work for Carlo Ancelotti, who's now the Real Madrid coach, when I was in France. Also, we've been heavily involved in the world game and developing players all around the planet. Now, one of the big things that we wanted to make sure people were aware of as well is that this program can be done from anywhere in the world. Everything is done remotely based. And just to prove the proof's in the pudding, so we discovered you, Maya, in sunny central Queensland where it's very hot and sticky. You were playing community-based football, and you've since gone down to Brisbane. You are now pretty much playing at the highest level that you can play in Brisbane. That's correct, isn't it? You couldn't be playing with Logan?
Yes, and amazing.
In the NPL. And then one of the things that we do and offer as one of the pillars on the program is once you've hit a certain benchmark of objectives and you have been completing your objectives to make it and show to us that you're at a standard good enough to go for a trial to the UK and Europe. Have you? Can you explain a little bit about what's happening with you next year and where you're going?
So next year I'm going to be going over and I'm going to be trialing or just visiting, seeing everything in the UK. It's going to be amazing and got to put in the training and the effort.
Amazing. So just for, again, those listeners and people watching this, Maya is going to be going on some trials in January to the UK, but also she's going to be going on trials in June, July as well to France and Spain. Maya is one of our more successful players who's really getting through the program and getting through the objectives. And once you get to a certain benchmark, we then open up opportunities for players. One of the big things that we don't do is just open up opportunities for players just because players tell us they're good enough or because their mum and dad tell us they're good enough. It gives us an indication of where they're at and how good they are. We can actually ascertain the level that players are at. And then once we see certain benchmarks are met on the 7 pillars of the program, we can then open up the trials. So I want to ask you, Maya, the UK in January, where it's like middle of summer and it's freezing cold here at the moment, or going to Spain and France in June, July, is there a particular country you're really looking forward to go on trial?
I can't pick. It's just oh, that's hard. Well, I've always wanted to go to the UK and stuff like that. Liverpool is a dream of mine, and although PSG was my favourite team, I think Liverpool's overcome that, and it's definitely going to be the UK trip.
That's amazing. So hopefully, once you get across on the trials next year, we can open up 1 or 2 opportunities for you. And then by the time you're 16 years of age, the plan is to be playing professional football in Europe. Is that the dream?
Definitely, yeah.
And I'm sure Mum's going to want to go with you and live overseas in Europe as well, isn't she?
Yeah, I think so.
Now, before we let you go and we finish off, mate, we've got a couple of minutes to go. But just for our listeners listening in, and especially for any young girls watching, do you recommend this program to players who are watching this?
Yeah, of course. It's just amazing help. Without it, I definitely wouldn't be here. I wouldn't be able to go overseas and do, like, complete my dreams and do stuff like that. So, yeah, it's definitely a good thing to get on.
That's amazing. And are you going to be okay with your mum following you all around Europe, following your career?
Yeah, I couldn't have done it without it either, so.
Oh, that's amazing. So a big thank you, mate, for joining us for this mini podcast. We wish you well. Obviously, we're going to be monitoring your journey. And for those guys who are watching and listening in as well, once a player makes it and they get an opportunity into the UK and Europe and they're with a pro club or on a scholarship opportunity, the journey's not over on the pro player pathway. You're on the programme for a minimum of 4 years. We do have bumps sometimes in the road. We have obstacles we have to get over. We have had players who are on the programme have been released from clubs, and part of this pro player pathway is to open up more opportunities. So if things don't always go to plan, we can assist and help. So we wish you well, Mayor. We're super excited. We're so happy to have you on the programme, and we look forward to watching your football career develop over the next couple of years.
Thank you so much for having me.
Now, Maya, before you go, I'm going to ask you one more question. Big game tonight. Real Madrid versus Borussia Dortmund. Can you give me a score prediction? And also, can you even tell me who you think the first goal scorer might be?
So, I'm a big Real Madrid fan, so I'm going to say a 2-1 win for us. And I think Jude Bellingham's going to score the first goal.
Okay, so you heard it here first, guys. Jude Bellingham, first goal. Real Madrid 2, Borussia Dortmund 1. And I think that's going to make a lot of Real Madrid fans happy if that's the case.
Definitely.
So a big thank you, Maya. Stay safe, keep well, say hello to Mum and Dad, and we'll be in touch over there the coming weeks. Hi everyone, it's Raymond Wood. A big thank you for joining us today. As ever, we've got another amazing podcast all the way back from sunny England, and we've got Gordon McCallan joining us. Gordon, how are you?
I'm very good, thanks. Now, Gordon, you were first brought to my attention, as most of our followers know, we work in football, or soccer as it's called here in Australia. And we helped a player a couple of years ago achieve a dream and get to play for Liverpool. And I'm in regular contact with all of our players and parents. And this particular parent, he's a great guy, and he reached out to me and said that he'd seen you at Liverpool Football Club. So for all of our listeners and everyone watching in and tuning in, maybe a great way to start this episode would be basically what you were up to at Liverpool, if you can reveal that, and what it is you do day to day to help players and families.
Yeah, look, I mean, it was obviously a big thing for me as well, being a Liverpool supporter, which I'm always very open about, despite working with all these clubs. I mean, it was great to obviously visit. Yeah, I mean, look, we did a session with staff around, I think, just the importance of everybody working effectively together for young people. You know, we're not talking structures here. We're talking relationships, environments, things around young players that allow them to develop as players and as people. And the session that I'm glad the parent obviously enjoyed, we did an introduction to sports performance parenting, which we deliver in a lot of different environments, just looking at our actual role as a parent, and what that actually means. I mean, some people think, well, you're telling people how to parent. Well, no, we're not. We're actually painting pictures for people to have a greater self-awareness of how to support performance. And I think there's a big difference there between those two things. So yeah, cracking evening, and hopefully we'll be back in the future.
Yeah, amazing. As I say, I spoke to Ben, one of the parents, one of the girls who's at Liverpool, and I think from an Australian moving to the UK and experiencing like the levels, like they've been blown away, because I'm not sure if you're fully aware, but the game's in a little bit of disarray on this side of the world, in Australia and New Zealand, and it's not done to the levels that it gets done in England and in Europe. And every time there's something on, he's blown away by the level, and I'm like, this is actually quite stock standard for England. Like, this sort of stuff's been going on for 20 years. But after receiving 3 messages and 2 phone calls, I thought, right, we need to get Gordon on. So look, what we've done is, Gordon, we've actually put it out to our customers and all of our players and families that you were coming on, and we've got some questions in from some of them. So I'm going to shoot a few of the questions off, probably the best way to go. And if you'd rather not answer, just say, can't answer. So one of them was a great one brought in from one of our families, and they've said, like, a core problem they want you to help them with. From you working in grassroots all the way through to elite sport, what's one of the biggest single mistakes that you see well-intentioned parents make that actually limits the children from pushing on? Is the one that you can really pinpoint that you don't think they're intentionally doing it, but it's a common one that you see?
Yeah, I think there's probably a couple of threads behind that for me. I think we should never underestimate the influence that we have as parents as the ultimate role models, and some of the things that young people need to be high performers. You know, I'm big on a lot of those building blocks young performers need, you know, commitment, resilience, the ability to make good decisions, adapt, be creative, organize themselves, communicate well with people. And a lot of their understanding of the sporting world from the younger stage comes from us as parents. They're a blank canvas. How we talk to them about sport, how we manage disappointment with them, what we value at home, what we deem as important are all vital in many ways shaping their future. Now, the challenge is, if you don't have a really good understanding of how young players develop, and the fact that every journey is different and it happens at different stages, and all of the other bits that go around performance, I think you end up falling back to, well, this is just what we do in football based on what we watch on the TV. And how I support on a Saturday watching Premier League football is very different to how I would ever support with sort of 2 young kids in a pathway. And I think that without that support, they just get sucked into lots of external noise. And I think even, in a world of comparison that we're growing up in, particularly for young people, you're lucky now because thankfully your country's shown some leadership on this. But I think with the advent of social media and how people are comparing, parents are really bad at that. And the kids tell us that actually one of their top 3 things for when mum and dad are at their worst is when they get compared to other players. Now, it's the comparison where we just say, well, why were they able to do that and you weren't? And the kids aren't in control of it. There's no feedback attached to it. And it ends up just making them feel worse and worse. And actually, half the time, there was nothing they could have done at that particular point in time. It was just where they were at that stage of the journey. So I think there's challenges around our role modelling. I think the understanding of how we develop young players, and then just, I guess, this comparison piece, and that every journey is unique, and we've got to get really comfortable with that. There isn't a one-size-fits-all solution. If you and I knew that we could put it into a pill to create a professional player, we'd be richer than Elon Musk. So before anybody can tell you that, we don't. We just don't. We can just go on what we know, what we've seen, upgrades in coaching, education, sports science, in the hope that we might find that formula that we're looking for. But you couldn't just copy and paste it from one person to the next and assume, well, that worked for them, so this will work for me.
It's so true. The program that I've built over the last 25 years, the professional player pathway, I was very fortunate to work on the EPPP with the FA. And that's obviously, as you know, was in excess of a £2 billion project to date. And we've had 24 success stories come out of Australia and the USA. And we think we've got the magic pill. But what we've discovered is we've got 8 pillars to the program. But only if you follow the 8 pillars and you follow it religiously and consistently for 10 years, you will spit out the other end. You might be a League 2 player or you might be a Premier League player. But what we're finding is so many of them fall by the wayside along the way because they're just not willing to put in the work and the effort. But also, I don't think the parents realise how much effort's required to get them there. And it's a tricky one. You've probably seen a lot of it as well in the time in the UK. Now, moving on from that, when we look at talent versus environment, this great question's a great one, again, from one of our parents. How much do you believe, Gordon, on a player's success is actually down to talent? And how much do you think comes more from the environment that's created by parents and coaches? Which side of the camp are you in?
Well, I actually think the best are both. So yeah. I'm not really sitting on the fence there. Because, and you see I always moan about the lack of context in messaging that we see with random statements throughout, what's the one about talent, hard work will always beat talent if talent doesn't work. Well, that doesn't apply because you could be the worst player that's ever kicked a ball and you could desperately want to be a professional footballer and you could work harder than anybody else, but you're still not going to be good enough. So I don't buy into that sort of basic black and white narrative. What I do think is if you have ability, for me, you still need to have those fundamental building blocks that I talked about earlier if you want to be successful as a performer. And I think that's created by the environment. And I think those character traits need to be developed. But I think we probably at a stage where we've got to be even more intentional with that. Many people used to think, sport, this naturally creates some of these traits. Well, yes, it can. But I think we're having to go, because of the changes in society, because of the changes with technology, because of the changes in modern day parenting, I think we're having to strip that noise away, push it to the side, because what hasn't changed is performance. And if you want to be a performer, you're going to have some talent, but you're also going to have to understand what holds that talent together and develop that alongside it. And I always say to parents, because we just haven't got any of these guarantees in the sports industry. You know, I've got kids in Olympic programs who couldn't have done any more over the last decade, Raymond, and they still haven't achieved what they wanted to achieve. And they're lashing out to adults around them saying, well, you told me if I just did this, I'd get there in the end, and you told me that, and all of this. And actually, we've really reframed what we're saying to them. We're only got to give ourselves the best chance because that's all we can promise. And it's not about being negative. It's about making sure we've done everything we possibly can, with the fallback being for me that if we invest all this time into this process, which you're going to have to do, which you know, and you don't quite get to where you want to be, what you have created is a brilliant person who will thrive in whatever walk of life they go into. And then I think it makes it really worthwhile. If we just sell that one success criteria, so many of us are going to be disappointed. You know, it is what it is.
Yeah, I love that one, and I think if we understand that, there's a lot of successes along the way, and we speak a lot about processes versus outcomes, and being a lot more focused on processes in our program. And they actually, if you start recognizing processes as wins, when you get that big outcome like scoring a goal or getting selected for your team for next year, that also then doesn't get given a big hoo-ha like it normally does, because the players are so process focused. Now, the next one, I always laugh at this one, the sideline effect. I can remember being 10 years of age, going to watch my cousin, who was a very talented footballer, and he was playing in Kirby at the time for a team called Kirby Town, which is where Liverpool's new training ground is. And my uncle, God love him and rest his soul, used to have a little bit of a temper on the sideline, and I'd been privy to him running across the pitch, having punch-ons with other parents, not really setting a good role model. So then 20 years later, I'm coaching at Leicester City in the Premier League at Everton, where the parents are 40 metres behind this tape. They're not allowed to do anything other than cheer. And I thought, wow, hasn't the game come on? The question I want to get to with the sideline effect, and we've got a lot of problems with this in Australia at the moment. It's like being in England in the 80s. What does the research and your experience tell you about sideline behaviour, and how does it really impact confidence, decision making, and love for the game? And give us an example. I'm sure you've seen many.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I'm just trying to think how you answer something like this, because everybody naturally on the parent thing, and when you do work with a lot of parents, how do I sort the sideline out? And I think it's got to go far deeper than that, because loads of people have tried to sort the sideline out with loads of different campaigns, chuck millions at it, and it's still as bad as what it ever is. The Australian one's interesting for me. I'll tell you a story. I was in Singapore doing some work with gymnastics, and I met an Australian in a bar, and we got talking about football. And he asked what I did, and I asked what he did. He said, oh, that's really interesting. And he said, who do you barrack for? So I was sort of taken aback culturally, and I have so many conversations. I thought, what a bizarre question. I'm assuming he means who do I support? But the immediate link then is, oh, well, football, that means I behave like that. You know, and what you find then is, what people are doing is that, like we talked about earlier, is they're basically saying, oh, well, this is what we do in football. So actually, because in football I've seen some of these elements of behaviour, oh, well, that's all right for me then to sort of behave like that. The trouble is, it doesn't support the challenge is it doesn't support performance. Now, when you get people to think about how do you support in a way that supports performance, particularly on the sides, you know, I always say we're trying to, particularly in my work, we're trying to help young players be ready for that step up to the professional game. Well, if they're going to play in front of 10, 15, 20,000, they're not going to be able to hear you yelling pass, down the line, tackle, shoot, and everything else that goes with it from the younger stage. So at what age are you going to let the stabilizers off? Yeah. And if you'd link that to the fact that actually all the good learning happens because we see pictures, we paint pictures in our mind, we make mistakes, we then adapt that to the next picture that we get. that picture from a player's perspective looks very different from what it does on the side. And in my sessions, when I wander to the side of where I deliver and say, funny, that's a very different view from the one I've got at the front as to where the spaces are and whatever else, you start to then think, okay, well, hang on. What am I actually here for? Am I supporting a team? Or am I supporting development? Am I supporting performance? Now, this isn't about removing fun, by the way. I'm not a fan of silent sidelines. I'm really not. I think they make a point, but they're very rarely backed up by continuous education, which is my issue with them. I think it raises awareness, but unless this is an ongoing piece and we're digging deeper and we're enhancing the environment that young people play in, it's just another thing that we tick off and do, and 2 weeks later everybody's back to behaving like normal, whether the kids have had it or not. So I always like to go down that line than trying to solve the society problem, certainly with performance parents, is how are you supporting a performer? And I think that means your ability to let them make those choices, to not get too embroiled. And if you do get emotional about stuff, I think this is a really good one for parents. And you know that all the external noise, all that stress of other parents, everything else that's going on, if you know inherently in your nature that's a challenge for you, I would go and stand on your own and zip your coat up. And honestly, my zip coat over the years, watching my two kids, I've still got a daughter at Newcastle United, a son who got released at 13 from a then Premier League club. I mean, my zips heard so many swear words over the year and so many statements. But the key is it's not impacting on the actual game and the kids. So I think all these things just help people consider why do they do what they do. And I think with the sideline, they do that because this is just what we do. This is just what we do in football. Well, yeah. Doesn't mean it's a good thing. And at the top clubs now, we're actually saying, why would we want to say this is what we do in football? It's actually, hang on, this is what we do at Liverpool because we've made the choice that we know this is right. We've got to be brave. This is what we do here, and this is what we're going to police and do effectively because we know that creates better players. And people have to be brave and police and stand behind some of the things they say they're going to do. But you can't conquer the whole game. Impossible. Couldn't have that impact. Nobody could have that impact on society.
No. If anyone can fix VAR, you'd be onto $1 billion business.
Yeah, it'd be like the magic pill, wouldn't it? Yeah.
Now, the next one, and I love this one because I was very lucky to work with a very progressive head of football at Leicester City, a guy called John Rudkin. And at the time when I was working there, he said, we have a triangle and everything's got to work in synergy. He said, you've got the player at the top, you've got the parents at the bottom left, and you've got the club and the coaches at the bottom right. And if we all accept praise, but we all accept when things go wrong, responsibility, it's like this formula that will always work. And I used to love that. But from your point, when we talk about coach and parent alignments, in your experience, what separates environments where parents and coaches work in sync from those that constantly clash? And if you could give us a good example of something that you could maybe refer back to.
Well, I think that triangle I think the key to that is bringing that triangle to life. We've made some adaptations to it because actually, particularly with younger players, we put the parent at the top because the reality is without them and their influence, you've got no one to coach. We put the kids in the middle, and then the clubs and the coaches around that. Look, coaches, teachers, really tough job, really difficult job. We go in and do a lot of work with coaches on how do you work effectively with parents. My gut on all of this is that for me, young people need consistency from key people in their lives. And when young people say to me, Gordon, who do I listen to, my parent or my coach? I'm like, well, tell me what it is. And with the limited information, I'll give you an honest answer. And sometimes I'll say parent and sometimes I'll say coach. There's something massively uncomfortable about that for me. Everybody's banging on in the world about what young people need. A good starting point would be some leadership and consistency from key people in their lives, and then we'll worry about all the other bits that go. They're getting so many mixed messages and mixed noise. I think coaches bring different experiences to it. So when you work with young coaches who've never really had a challenge with parents, they're quite open to it. Those that have been round the block, maybe got a little bit older, a little bit uglier in my case, and have had to deliver bad news at a variety of points. You've then been on the receiving end of the late night email full of Sauvignon Blanc. You've been on the receiving end of all of these things. And it changes your perception of how you want to work with them, because it's like, actually, this is easy for me. I just want to push you as far away as possible. But actually, that presents really big problems, because then you don't get, well, actually, what's the coach working towards here? Where's the progress update for my kid? What are we working on? How can we support at home? Because parents are desperate to do the extra supporting bit. So how do we bring them into that whilst they're not interfering with maybe the technical and the coaching aspect of the game? How do we do it in a way that makes those conversations happen, and how do we create environments for those to happen, but not so that parents have got access to coaches every minute of the day either. But what you can't have is the wall of silence where the parents make up their own narratives, because I think that causes more damage than actually the reality of it, because they just pass it round to each other. But that's based on a lack of information for me, and a lack of understanding, and a lack of clarity and transparency of what's going on. And I think the best environments that I see working are really good. There is a safety for parents to speak in different formats, however that may be. But they're very aligned on, this is what we're trying to achieve. These are the steps that we're going to get there. This is what we're doing. This is what we could like you to help us with. And I think environments that are able to do that, I just think everybody benefits, because we've got to paint the picture of what development is, because it's not always nice. And I when I see parents who are shocked by some of it's like, what were you expecting to see from being involved in performance sport? You know, it's like being a firefighter. If you go into the fire service, you will expect to see fire. If you go into performance sport, there are things you are going to see that happen to absolutely everybody that's ever played the game, or anybody that's tried to achieve. And then there's this major shock. Well, let's just talk about it. Let's just get it out there. Let's be honest. And let's just try and make sense of it in a way that helps young people.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. Now, this next one, the car ride home. What's one thing that parents need to stop saying to kids, and what should be the framework of the car journey home from a parent's perspective to the child?
Yeah, okay. What I think we have to get away from is widely publicised, this would be really good to say, I loved watching you play, or did you enjoy that? Because if I asked my 15-year-old daughter that question now, she'd look at me as though I was on another planet. I get that some of these people are desperate to get a greater narrative. The reality for me, car journeys home, after games, everybody's emotional, tired, worked up. That's parents, coaches, and young players. Emotionally, physically, mentally tired. If things haven't gone according to plan, and I don't know how parents feel. I mean, parents, listen to me. I'm shattered after watching my kids compete. I haven't verbalized it, but my God, I've lived the experience with them and everything that goes with it. In no other walk of life, if it's gone badly, would we put those two human beings back together and say, do you know what, we're now going to pick the bones out of that.
Yeah, you can imagine that on Match of the Day.
Yeah, but there you go. There's the issue. I think, because what happens is, because we've got so used to after-match analysis, and because we've got so used to, oh, well, this is clearly what we do from the age of 5 when we first appear, with the kids walking 10 metres behind us, sipping their water with their heads down, as we quote Match of the Day from the night before. it doesn't necessarily support performance. And I think our ability, if it's gone well, it's easy because everybody wants to talk about, oh, did you see that? Oh, that was amazing when I did this. That's easy. That's the easy bit. But I think working with our kids around what actually works for them, what do they need after a game, and talking to them, because again, everybody's going to be different. And when I work with teenagers, Raymond, I've got live evidence of this because I ask them what they want after a game. And their top 3 answers are bath and a shower, food and a sleep. At no point do they say a full-scale debrief with my mum and dad. However, what they do say is, I love talking to my parents about their sport, about my sport. And I'm like, yes, thank goodness for that. I love talking sport with my kids. And I said, well, what does that mean? And they'll say, well, I'm happy to do it later, or I'm happy to do it tomorrow or a day after. And we know that from performance environments, that some elements of feedback we hold on to in the immediate aftermath of a game, and we wait till training on the Monday or training on the Tuesday. Well, we can incorporate that into some of our parenting approach as well. And I think if you are going to ask questions, you want to get your kids reflecting on their experience through their eyes and try to resist the urge to do all the technical feedback of how you saw the world unless they're leading it. But again, some kids will probably say, yeah, I need that from my dad as well. They have such a big influence. So I'm never going to say it's completely right one way or the other. I think there's just things we've got to consider.
Yeah, I love it. I think for me, I think the big game changer being at a Category 1 club at Leicester at the time was when they implemented the bus journeys to and from the games. So especially the away games, so the parents were allowed to travel, but they weren't allowed to be with the players. And the players had to be on the bus to come home. And what we found was the social elements of the game was great because the kids would get on the bus, win, lose or draw. And we found that none of them really spoke about the game. All they were talking about was the computer games, the latest girlfriends. And they actually just had child time, being a child. And I remember having Luke Thomas and Harvey Barnes at the time, and they're sitting at the back of the bus. And I just look back now and they were like 12 and 14 years of age and think the kids just wanted to be kids. They didn't want that full match of the day debrief. And it's just, I think it's a shame that not everyone gets that because not everyone plays at that level. And they have to do the car journey home sometimes, unfortunately, with difficult conversations.
But also, the thing for me, Roman, we've seen with the growth of our work is who helps them.
Yeah.
So we're having this chat here. If you listen to this morning, you might go, actually, is that good, and maybe adapt one thing. Where's the mass support on how we actually support young people and help clubs and coaches create the right environments for that to happen?
It's so interesting. So without going off track too much, when we worked on the EPPP and we were trying to get the Cat 1 status for Leicester, which was successful, it always used to sit in the back of my head. I was reading a lot of books like Bounce by Matthew Said and Outlier by Malcolm Gladwell, and it sort of hit me that we're missing the boat. And this is 15 years ago, that the most important components of a child's life is the parents or the parents. And I think that's where we're going to not increase 1%. I think we could increase football players in England by another 10%, I think, if we start to work with the parents. And I think this is why when I seen your business and I seen your LinkedIn profile and I spoke to Ben and he told me about you, and I'm like, this needs to be spread. Like, this is something that we've been throwing mud on the wall for years, but it hasn't been sticking. So it is a real privilege to speak to you today, mate, because I can see people are going to see this and it's going to make a huge change. And hopefully England can get that World Cup one year.
I can't guarantee that, but we live in hope, don't we?
We do. Now, we've only got a couple of questions to go, so we've got 2 more to go. The next one is the parents as a performance asset. So if parents saw themselves as part of the performance team rather than spectators, what behaviours do you think could change first?
I think, again, for me, it's an again, it's what our role is as a parent, isn't it? I think if we're supporting performance, our role is obviously in logistics, environment at home, conversations, dialogues. And I actually think more, for me, when young people say, I want to be a professional player, or young people say, I want to go to the Olympics, I think that's brilliant. I love people to dream, aspire, and have hope. But I think what it does mean for us as parents is I do think it means we can shift the dial on them a little bit, because then we've got to be demanding of the behaviours and those building blocks.
Yeah.
And we're not confronting the person, because you try and have some of these conversations with teenagers, it's an absolute minefield. We're not confronting the person, we're confronting the behaviour. And actually our ability as parents to recognise that actually if I support, like you talked about earlier, the processes, that actually you need to bring into your week a large number of these character traits. You're telling me that you want to be a professional player, yet you're still on your devices till 3 a.m, and you're maybe not getting a quality of sleep, and you're maybe not doing your nutrition as well as it could be done. I've got an issue with that, because for me, they're then just words. But I think there has to be that distinction then between, this is my kid just going out to play grassroots football, and this is somebody trying to do performance. I think they're two very different entities with very different outcomes, and everybody wants a one-size-fits-all solution to the whole thing. The moment we mention performance, for me, and you're part of supporting performance, I think you've got to really look at what your role is within that group.
Yeah, 100%. It's so important, and I think the whole sort of content of this podcast has all been about framing it and how the parents frame everything. And I think just having a bit of a plan and a thought process. Now, the final one, you're probably expecting this one, but the final question, and this is my question, for parents who are genuine and they want to give the child the best chance, not just in sport, but I think in life as well, what are the 3 behaviours or 2 or 3 behaviours that you think they can commit to today that's achievable, but they should follow through with them? And not just as like in your line of work, but as a fellow parent as well.
Oh, tough one. I prefer your parents' questions. They're easy. We'll go. Look, I think there's got to be commitment. There has to be commitment. I always just say that. It's always a context thing for me. There has to be commitment, but also young people need to have rest, recovery, and balance in their lives. But there has to be a commitment on things that we're trying to do and trying to achieve. Look, motivation comes and goes, Raymond. We all do that from our lives. But if we've committed to, this is what I'm trying to do, you find a way of getting the job done. So I think there's a commitment piece. I think you have to have resilience.
Yeah.
The trouble is, everything in the world at the moment is chipping away against resilience.
Yeah.
Blame cultures, excuses, poor
entitlements,
comparisons, all of those behaviours. We've got to foster that in a positive way. And do you know what? It means pain, it means upset, and it means learning from these experiences and doing it in a way that creates far better foundations. I also think a trait that I just think in life, and I know has been invaluable to me, and I encourage this in my kids more than any other trait, is your ability to communicate with other people. I think is huge.
Yeah.
I think your ability to take people with you, I think your ability to go and seek support, your ability to communicate well, absolutely massive. And do you know what? Young players are not going to reach the top on their own. They're going to need support. Well, we want to get them talking about their game. We know one of the traits of high performers is how good they are at evaluating performance and what it is that they're doing. Well, we've got to get them talking about their sport, get them talking about how they're feeling about it. If they need to solve problems, maybe rather than always jumping in, is this one of those times where actually I can help shape a conversation with them to maybe go and have with the coach or somebody win the club. Get them standing on their own 2 feet. So, yeah, I think for me, commitment, resilience, good communicators, I think would stand you in pretty good stead.
It's an amazing one to finish on, and I had a really big argument with my ex-wife at the time. This is many years ago, and my eldest daughter, who's now 17, professional tennis player, she was 6 years of age, and we'd just come back to England for a visit, and we pulled up outside the newspaper shop, and I give her some money. She was only 6, and I said, "You need to go in the shop. You need to get me a copy of the Liverpool Echo." I wrote it down. I said, "It's a newspaper," and she stood there outside the shop 15 minutes crying. And I'm like, no, you need to just go in. I'm watching, and she did eventually. And I remember her mum saying to me many years later, she said, "I sort of understood what you were doing with her when she was really young, really helping her to have the confidence to go in even at the age of 6 and 7. Because I think if, that's normal for me and you to walk in the shop and buy a newspaper. But if you've never done it, the first barrier is communication. And I think it's a poignant one to finish on. Now, for all of our followers, before we let you go, Gordon, so obviously you've been doing a bit of work in Liverpool this year. Is there any other big clubs that you've worked in and any other big plans for the rest of 2026 that you can share with our platform? Because we're very fortunate. We've got about 2 million followers across all the socials. So everyone would be keen to know what you're up to this year.
Yeah, look, there's loads on the go. I mean, we work across the Premier League, the boys and girls program. We're working with the England teams on the girls' side. We're across all of the Football League clubs. But beyond, some stuff in the US as well, working with individual clubs over there. And then, of course, that's our football world. We're doing rugby pathways, cricket pathways, hockey, gymnastics, international gymnastics. I was even asked to do some work in curling and skateboarding. I mean, I always joke, I know absolutely nothing about curling and skateboarding. And I always say, if anybody wants to have a chat, I'd be really grateful. Nobody comes forward. Nobody's come forward yet for a long time. But yeah, look, massively exciting. And the best thing for me is I get to have so many dialogues and visit so many different environments every day. It's a real privilege. And all you're trying to do, I guess, is bring everybody closer together, relationships-wise, in a way that ultimately is helping these young people thrive. And yeah, very fortunate to, as I say, work with all these different experiences and try and make sense of what is a very complex world that we're living in.
It is. It's very, very complex. Now, we will share it in the show notes, but if anyone wants to reach out to you or get a copy of the book or anything, where can they go to see it?
Yeah, so the book's exclusively available on the Parents in Sport platform. That's www.parentsinsport.co.uk. That's not because it's not a bestseller. It's the fact that I wasn't going to let Amazon take all the profits from that. So we sell that there, but we sell it after talks across the world, and we've got a number of programs who buy all of those books for their parents within their programs. So that's how we do our sales. So that's the best place to find us. And if anybody wants to reach out and send us an email from there, that would be the place to do it.
What I'm going to do is, for all of my listeners and followers on our platform, the first 3 players to comment on this book, BOOK, we'll actually purchase you a copy of the book. So we're going to give away 3 copies. And all you've got to do, my friends, on our platform is comment the word book, and the first 3 families to do that, we'll actually purchase a copy of the book for you off Gordon. So, Gordon, a big thank you, mate. I know it's early morning there, it's late at night here, but a big thank you for your time. And maybe we do weekly live calls with our athletes. So maybe at some point later in the year, if maybe we could get you for 15, 20 minutes and let our parents unleash themselves on you.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, happy to help. Love the conversation as always.
Cheers, Gordon. I'll be in touch, mate. Thanks very much.
Got to do this weight session, got to do this. That's not going to help you whenever you're in sparring and somebody's punching the head off you, you know what I mean? It's fight, we have to fight, you know what I mean? So, obviously, as you put the hard work in, but I like to, whenever I'm sparring and stuff, it takes priority, and you want to be sparring fresh, because obviously if you're not sparring well, that plays in your head. as such. Do you know what I mean? Some people don't spar that well. Like I don't spar the best anyway, but then on fight night I rise sort of. Like I fight better than what I spar.
Yeah.
Just purely because of you rise for the occasion, you know what I mean? But I know some people who are the complete opposite, spar unbelievable, but then when they're under the bright lights, no good. Yeah, you know, just they don't perform
Exactly
at
the
all.
same in football. There's been a lot of footballers over the years who've had the thrown at them, and I've seen it on training grounds in the Premier League. Like, you've got some of the most amazing trainers, then when they get on a pitch, they just can't put it together.
Yeah.
And then there's a lot of players who are the other way around, and
Yeah.
it must be tricky to balance that one.
It is, and that's why like sometimes you can't now my coaches and stuff and my manager and that, they know me so well, they don't panic whenever I don't spar that well because they know I fight like, and that's when you want to be doing it. You know what I mean? So
You don't want it the other way around.
there's no word titles one sparring. Yeah, so like obviously as I said, the main thing is the sparring, getting ready for the fight, and lots of punching, lots of pad work, and all that, working on your technique and all that is a given. But just S&C and the running and that's just a part of the puzzle.
Yeah.
But the majority is the boxing.
Is the boxing. It's actually getting in and practicing.
100%. There's nothing like, as you know yourself, like.
One of the big things that our players go through, and you obviously go through a lot, because not only like have you got hundreds or thousands of people in the room, but you're on the cameras, people are watching this worldwide. When you're walking into that ring, I mean, I love your walk-ins, I love the music, but I actually get nervous for you as well, and I'm like, bloody hell, like I'm sitting here getting nervous for him, thinking, God knows what Conor feels like. Have you got a way of channeling that? Do you get nervous? Is it a good nervous energy? Are you able to turn it into a positive energy? How do you deal with it?
Yeah, I believe I turn it into a positive energy because, like, the fighting is the fun part for me. Like, I love the fighting. I stick to the training. It's all right. I know you have to do it.
Yeah.
But, like, I definitely much prefer fighting than training, you know?
Yeah.
So, like, getting to the fight night, like, knowing, whenever I get to the fight night, like, knowing I've put in the work, you know, and that's where I get my confidence from, because I know I do train hard, you know, I know I put in the work, and that's where a lot of the confidence comes from. But just knowing that, right, we're here now, no injuries, no colds, no flus, you know, all the hours and sacrifice that I've done comes down to this. And that's why you see me when I'm coming out, I'm laughing, I'm like buzzing, I'm dancing, I'm singing to the music and getting the crowd and everything going. And that's what it's all about, you know?
Yeah.
And I do love that, and it definitely turned into a positive. And I think that's why I perform on the night as such, because like I'm not nervous. I'm not like, oh, well, what I know the work I've done, and I believe in my ability. And if I didn't think I'd beat the boy, I wouldn't be in the ring.
Yeah.
And that's just how it is.
Now, you ring walkout. I want you to tell everyone the song that you come out to, and also why you chose that song.
Yeah, well, I've had a few different ones. I came out to Working Class Man at the start. I think it was my coach. He used to walk out. I came out to a few Irish songs, and then obviously I was headlining on St. Patrick's Day, that one that you were at. I came out, did a bit of an Irish song at the start, and then it burst into Run This Town because it really got the crowd going.
Yeah.
And I've kept that since, just because in Sydney the last time was a big Irish crowd in Sydney as well, and obviously I'm very proud to be Irish, and I'll never change, you know what I mean? So it's good. And I got to play on that Irish theme because everyone knows the fighting Irish, and everyone knows the Irish love a scrap, they love a beer. So I'll keep it going. But no, I'm looking forward to getting back. I love the Fortitude Music Hall where I'm fighting next. It is my favourite venue.
Yeah.
I've made it a bit of a home for myself now, and obviously with Finn McCool's, they're one of my sponsors as well, right across the road.
Yeah.
Everyone goes there before the fight.
Yeah.
We have the fight and then go there after. That's where I have my after party. So it's unreal, and it's building and building all the time, and I'm sure you've seen on St. Patrick's Day what it was like. It was unbelievable.
I couldn't believe it that day. It was such a good day, like, to bring my two daughters out, and I've told them about many of their drunken St. Patrick days we were part of as kids growing up with my dad and my uncle and my granddad. And I've told you, like, my nan was from Ireland, from the south of Ireland, from a place called Kildare in Dublin. We've got a lot of Irish roots, and just for my girls to be part of that and put the green on and wear your colour in your tea, and it was such a good day and night. And then, you know, even going back in the pub in the evening, just for the atmosphere alone, like, it was phenomenal. Like, you just can't beat it.
Yeah, unbelievable. And again, I was supposed to fight last St. Patrick's Day, not the one just gone.
Yeah.
But the hand surgery ruled me out of it, so I broke my hand that November and got the 7 screws and the bone from my hip, and that was a setback. You know, I was so looking forward to fighting on St. Patrick's Day, and then it was pushed back until July just to give me a little bit of time.
Yeah.
And then I wasn't for missing. I wasn't for missing the one just gone. It was an unbelievable fight too, and because it was a bit of a war, and ended up knocking the guy out in the 6th round again. So, but I think if I hadn't really stopped the boy earlier in the first round, it wouldn't have been as good an event. You know, the fight made it as well because it was a war and the crowd was so involved. It was good, you know, and then getting the knockout put the icing on the cake, you know. So it was good.
It was so good. Now, we speak to our athletes about sort of like pre-game rituals, and we spoke to them about last year about, like, as an example, Rafa Nadal in tennis. Everyone who's seen him, they think he's ADHD in a sense of the way, like, he turns his bottles and he twists his lids a certain way. But I know from my background, he's actually, what he's doing is he's focusing on processes and outcomes, and he's trying to put the outcome of the match away and just focus on one process at a time, and that's actual a visual reminder for him. It's like a trigger. Do you have any, like, pre-fight rituals to help you with any of that stuff, or anything maybe you're superstitious about, or for our athletes you could tell or share with?
Yeah, definitely. I am a very superstitious person, to be honest. I don't like to change much. I like to keep the same routine, as I said earlier in the podcast. But, like, so after I have the weigh-in and stuff, I start to refuel and rehydrate. I always go to an Italian restaurant.
Yeah.
Then the night before the fight, just like to carb up and pasta and stuff. And that's one thing I always do, but go to the same one all the time. Marinara at Clayfield, you probably know it.
Lovely.
Yeah, I go there, and then I get up. So on the day of the fight, I don't like lying about, you know, and the day drags, you're just sitting thinking about the fight. So I like to surround myself with, get out and go for a coffee and be around my mates, be around my missus, you know, and it takes your mind off the fight as such.
Yeah.
Because on a normal day or if I'm sparring, I never lie in bed all day or rest, or your mind's just doing overtime. So I like to, it's just another day, you know, and then I'll go to the pool, jump in the pool, have a bit of a swim, bit of a stretch.
Yeah.
Feel good, and then actually train the day of the fight as well, because it just helps you settle the food.
Yeah.
And I train twice a day anyway. I don't do a mad session where I'm absolutely gassed, but I do a good blowout. You just feel better, you know what you feel like after getting the body moving and stuff. And then I'll go home and have a bit of a feed, follow my plans from my dietitian and stuff, and then I head to the fight. But obviously I like to wear the same boxers and stuff at fighting. Just stuff like that, you know. Yeah. It's just a real common thing, and same little prayer that I've always said since I was 11. Just at what my first boxing coach, he done this little prayer verse, and I've always said it before every fight, you know. Yeah. Just simple stuff like that, but
just keeping to that routine again.
Keeping to that routine. Yeah. Get my training session all in, feel good, the food that I ate. Yeah. Know what works well for me, what doesn't work well for me. So I've been around the game a long time. I've been boxing for almost 20 years and stuff, and you pick up things along the journey, along the way, and I got to use them to my advantage. Yeah.
Now, roll on this fight, and let's imagine you get over the line with that fight and you put that one away. What's the next plans? Because you've already said you're ranked number 2 in the world. Who's in your sights? Who is it? Who do you want to fight, and where do you want to fight, and what's your dream?
Yeah, so like I've dreamt about being a world champion since I was a young boy, you know, and like been boxing for 20 years, as I say, this just didn't happen overnight. I have had a lot of ups and downs, you know, injuries and whatnot. So this fight in December, I'm definitely not overlooking my opponent. You know, you can't at this level. Anything can happen. It's a fight game, so it's very important for me. This can be a banana skin. You know what I mean? If I lose, it undoes all my good work. So a lot of pressure on every fight now. Every fight's like a world title fight, as I say. So I'm looking forward to getting in there and doing a good job. And I like the pressure. I like having that pressure on me, and it pushes me hard in training, because I know if I lose here, I slip up. So the main thing is to get a good win, and from then I'm looking forward to setting myself up for a huge year next year. Yeah, obviously we're coming for that. We're not too far away from a world title shot. So
do you think if you get this fight over the line, is the next fight a potential world title fight or not?
Potentially it could be, you know, depending on what happens with the belts and stuff. I think it's a little bit up in the air what's going to happen with if the boys are rematching or not. I think Bivol and Better Biev might be rematching in March, but again, I leave that up to my management and promoters. That is their job, but they've got my best interests at heart, and they know we're all pulling together the one way to get that world title shot. So the main thing is for me to keep winning, and if the next fight after this one is not a world title shot or whatever, and I just need to be fighting. Do you know what I mean? As such, I don't want to not fight from now until maybe next November or next October. That's pointless. You know. Main thing is you get a good win and then take it from there and see what's next. But that's the beauty of having a good team around you. You know.
As a young boy growing up, is the one venue or one sort of like hotel or one stadium where you'd absolutely love to fight in?
I think with my experience of being with McGregor, you know, in Vegas, that T-Mobile Arena, it's a special stadium.
Real.
Yeah, like the walkout and stuff. I know the UFC events are mad and the fans are fanatics, you know, but I'll never forget walking out with him. Obviously, I got to do his corner for the fight, or in the cage, and walking out. I'm not joking you, Ray. The ground was like vibrating. Like I've never experienced that before in my life, but it was just never the woman. She was like 3, 2, 1, walk, and like we start on the floor. I'm not messing. I've never ever in all my time, like I've been to some of the biggest boxing events ever, and I've never ever experienced anything like that. Conor McGregor.
What would that T-Mobile Arena hold in Vegas? Is it?
I'm not too sure, but even just the full week, the buzz, the fight week and all. But I thought that was unbelievable, right? And then. But just that walk, I'll never forget her counting in and us walking out, and I was just like, wow, this is not wise.
So obviously I've seen on your posting, I've heard you speak about Conor McGregor before. So have you actually got in the ring with him and sparred with him, or have you done anything with him in the past?
Yeah, I have. I was actually his main sparring partner for the Nate Diaz fight. As you know, I'm a tall southpaw. Left-handed, obviously that's the same as Diaz. So whenever he had the first loss, like he was just sparring people in the gym and whatever. But until you don't change anything until you have a loss, or if it's not broke, don't fix it. You know what I mean? So he obviously had that loss, and similar to myself, he wanted to get the win back. So he put a plan in place, new strength coach, new conditioning coach, and brought in sparring partners specific and similar to Diaz. And I was obviously one of them.
That's smart.
The fight was like a boxing fight, you know. Stand up, I'm tall, lanky, the same as Diaz, and that's what it was like. So. He brought me into Dublin to spar him, and then I sparred him once in Dublin, and then he ended up taking me to Vegas for the full 6 or 8 week camp, whatever it was. Lived in Vegas with him for the full camp, and it was unbelievable. You know, the people that
hell of a time.
Oh, it was unreal. You know, the people that we met along the way. It was, but it made me hungry. You know, and
you want that.
That's where I want to be. You know, and that's whenever I knew, like, McGregor started from nothing, you know, and just with hard work and sacrifice, and he had plenty of ups and downs, and the main thing is the hard work and dedication he put in got him to where he was, 100%, you know, and like we met Kanye West, Cristiano Ronaldo, we met everyone, you know. It was crazy,
Amazing. I remember growing up as a kid and always avidly I always loved football, but boxing was always one that we, you know, the Mike Tyson fights, the Frank Bruno fights. I remember seeing those big fights in Vegas going, it'd be amazing to go to Vegas and watch a fight, but it's changed a bit now, the boxing world. A lot of it's going to Saudi, there's a lot more money coming from that. So would that be something that you'd still be keen on as well, if there was an opportunity to go into Saudi? And
oh, for sure, well, I just got back from Saudi. I was over there at the Bivol and Beterbiev fight, and obviously Jairo Bataya was fighting, Sky Nicholson was fighting, 2 Aussies, so it's good to go along and support them and see what it's like. That was my first time in Saudi Arabia, but again, you know, it was good to get over there. People seeing the rankings and stuff, but it's good to get over there and do a bit of networking and meet some people that did heaps of media and stuff, but to get over there, it's about the relationship you have with them people, and that's how you get on them big shows and stuff, you know, as well. You know, you can keep winning and stuff, but if they don't sort of have that relationship with you, or
I think it's good for people to put your face to your name as well, isn't
exactly.
it?
That's what it's all about. And again, networking and seeing people, and I'm a bit like yourself, you know. I love talking and meeting new people, and I think that's how we sort of get on, you know. And it was great. It was great to be there and be part of it, and again, that makes you hungrier to want to get there.
So thanks to you, you're not aware of this, but since we come to your last fight, and obviously I brought my youngest one, Paloma,
we've watched Rocky 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 about 5 times over. She just does not shut up about it. Like,
Yeah.
she's like, it's like Connor's fights, look, Dad. And then, she was devastated when she watched Rocky 3 when he lost to Mr. T.
I must actually watch them back. I haven't watched them in a while yet. But whenever you do start getting into them, you want to just watch them all, isn't it?
But I'm using it as a bit of a psychology with it because she's done a lot of different sports over the years, where my eldest has just solely been tennis, and I'm trying to get into running a little bit just for a bit of fitness and just for health reasons. And it's funny that the night before, if she's watched Rocky, she'll get up and do a run the next day, no problem.
Yeah, just gives you the motivation.
The motivation.
Yeah.
Guys, we're just going to go to our third and final ad break, but we'll be back with you in a couple of minutes. Thank you.
Hi everyone, we are coming around every major city in Australia over the next 12 months. We have got free objective football testing going on, guys. It's for boys and girls aged 10 all the way through to 18 years of age. The objective testing is quite simple. We'll put you through our 6 tests and it'll give you your results, physical, technical and tactical. And also, we're going to choose 16 winners to join us on an all expenses paid trip to Europe in 2024 and also 2025. Guys, what have you got to lose? Nothing. It's free to sign up. You get free objective testing and you'll get a free feedback, and maybe you'll be joining me at the Santiago Bernabeu in 2024 or 25.
Hi everyone, this is Raymond Wood at the Raymond Wood Podcast. We're back for our little final section with Connor Wallace. Now Connor, we've been speaking about Saudi, Vegas, big fights, pre-fight rituals, your support system and your network. Obviously, forecasting a little bit further ahead. I know you're still only young and you're still in your career, but do you ever have any thoughts about like when it's all over and you finish boxing? One of the big things I'm saying this is that one of the things we discovered in football and more so in men, it was really, really hard that men go through this lifestyle of living this, people see it as a luxurious life, and I know it's not. There's a lot of hard work that goes into being an athlete in any sport, but once that stops, sometimes unfortunately there's a lot of men who go into like depression and breakdowns and stuff. And what we discovered was in the football world is they don't really future plan ahead. Have you got anything in your head where you think, you know, are you just going to go complete family? Would you like to be a coach in boxing? Would you come out of boxing? Do you ever think about that stuff post-career?
Yeah, definitely. You know, obviously, boxing's been a massive part of my life, and even whenever I'm not boxing, I do enjoy a little bit of coaching and some of the charity programs. And I'm sure you've heard about the Fight for a Cause, or you know, the train for 10 weeks and fight at the end for those people for a good charity. You know, I get a lot out of that, and I do a little bit of PTing and stuff here and there. Not so much now, obviously, when I've got the big fights and that coming up, but did a lot of work with the NDIS and stuff. You know, the kids with learning disabilities. And whenever I first came to Australia, I was PTing and, you know, working as well whenever I wasn't training, because that's like taking classes and stuff, and that's how I built up a lot of my my relationships and sponsors and how people got to know me. Obviously, my fighting as well, but like you have to start somewhere. You know what I mean? Like I just didn't jump straight into the big fights, because you obviously have to work your way up. You know, and even still now, like I still take the Wednesday morning class in Fortitude boxing, and that's purely because like I'll never forget where I come from, you know what I mean? Yeah. I'm never too good to give 45 minutes of my time to that. Like I met a couple of my major sponsors through that class, you know what I mean? Or through them early morning class. And how hard is it to give 45 minutes of your time each week?
It's networking again, isn't it? Relationships.
100%,
We were literally talking about this. I was in the gym yesterday and I was sat in the sauna, and this guy literally got chatting, asked me what I'd done, and then all of a sudden there was a synergy between us and his business, and then we were on a call this morning, like connecting, and it's all around helping kids and doing a good cause.
Like you never know who you're going to meet, or you know what I mean, or who can come into the class and stuff, you know. And like I'll never forget where I come from, you know what I mean. And that's one thing I think a lot of people who know me and from talking to me, I'm pretty sort of a humble sort of person. I don't like that shit talking or talking shit before a fight or disrespect. Like that's not the way I was reared, you know what I mean. And I've got a great relationship with all my sponsors. Like people just don't throw me money or whatever and say, oh yeah, that's good now. I'm not take. That's not how I operate and how I work, you know. I've got a great relationship with all my sponsors and stuff, and I think that's very important as well, you know. Like people will get sick of, you know, if it's tick, you know.
Yeah.
How easy is, I think it's easier to be nice to people than to not be nice, you know?
It is. It's huge. And that's one of the things I wanted to finish on. Obviously, talk a little bit about your background. Obviously, we both grew up probably not too far away from each other, probably 15 minutes on a plane. Where did you grow up? I know where you're from, but just for our listeners listening, and what was your upbringing? You know, mum, dad, siblings, friends, family.
Yeah. Well, I was born in Newry, and just right on the border between the north and south of Ireland. So an hour from Dublin and 45 from Belfast on the northern side. My mother and father, Brian and Serena, and my sister. I've got a brother and sister, one older sister and one younger brother, Eve, Ellen, and Guy.
Yeah.
My brother. They're actually all here as well. It's just my mum and dad are back at home. So, now got a great life coming up, and obviously in primary school, went to St. Coleman's College then, but I've been boxing. I actually started boxing because I was getting bullied in primary school. That's why I started, and
Wow.
I didn't think I'd be here today.
Yeah.
You know, boxing. So, it is what it is. You know, again, it's the sacrifice and stuff you make, and I'm a very competitive person. When you start winning, you get hungrier and hungrier. You know, and that's where it led me to. But I've had a great life, you know, and I think the backing of the parents is massive as well. You know, my parents wasn't taking me or pushing me on, I probably wouldn't be here today.
Yeah.
So I owe a lot to them as well, and hopefully one day they'll be able to retire or whatever, and I'll be able to support them, or maybe they'll come out here, and it's good, you know. So again, all the work that we've put in comes down to this next fight.
Yeah.
So
Just one fight at a time.
one fight at a time.
Yeah.
You know, you're only as good as your last performance, and that's why I never get too carried away.
Yeah.
And like we just talked about, and doing the class and stuff in the gym, I'll never change, you know. And some people say, "Oh, you don't need to be in M class, or you don't need to be taking." I was like, "Nah, that's just me." You know what I mean? And
it's funny, like, to finish on, like, you know, they say it's a very stereotypical answer that a lot of football players get asked. Like Liverpool at the moment, my team, you know, they're top of the Premier League, top of the Champions League, and, you know, they're asking the players, you know, you're going to win the league this year, you're going to win the Champions League, but the players are grounded, and the coaching staff are grounded. Like, look, we're only a third of the season the way through. It's one game at a time, one training session at a time, and people think they're just saying that, and secretly in the background they're jumping around celebrating, but I know they're not, and it's like with you can't afford to do that. You can't think 2 fights ahead. You've got to think about just the next training session in front of you, which is going to get you to that fight.
Well, 100%, you know, and it's a combat sport, or it's a fight game we're in, you know, anything can happen.
Yeah.
You cut or break your hand, and I know that myself, you know. Everything can be going well, and then bang, with a flick of a switch again. So you got to be ready for all of that. So
we'll wish you the best of luck, mate. We're going to be there. We've got our staff Christmas party's going to be at the fight, and we're so excited to come and support you. And it's going to be super exciting. So it's at the Fortitude Music Hall in Brisbane, 11th December. What time's the kick off?
Yeah, it kicks off about 6 or 6:30, I would say.
6:30.
My fight's the main event, so it'll be the last fight. But it's a great. It's a stacked undercard as well. So every fight's going to be a great fight, and obviously for those that can make it, jump on my Instagram or whatever, and the link for the tickets is in my bio. And if you can't make it, tune in live on DAZN all over the world. So
we'll share it in the show link. So a big thank you, Conor, for joining us again.
No worries.
And hopefully the next time we have you on, we may be getting closer to that world title fight. Fingers crossed.
Yes, fingers crossed. That's what we want. But as we said, one fight at a time, and we got a job to do on the 11th of December, and we'll take it from there. Yep.
Amazing. Everyone, a big thank you for joining me at the Raymond Wood podcast. We're going to be back pretty quick. We've got 2 more podcasts coming up in the next 7 to 10 days. So big thank you for joining me and Conor. And I think everyone will be wishing Conor the best of luck. Again, in the show notes below, we'll put the link in if you're interested in coming out to Brisbane and supporting Conor, who's an Irish/Aussie. And we hope him all the best with his boxing. Thanks, everyone.
Welcome to the Raymond Wood podcast. My name's Nick Robinson. I'm the producer of the show. My business is Clearshot Digital. If you want to chat about podcasts, I'm your guy. However, today I thought we'd sit down with Ray because he's been talking to a lot of people and getting their story, but I wanted to take the opportunity to sit down because you've been very busy. there's a lot going on, and I wanted to take the opportunity to speak to you a little bit about the academy that you've got coming up. We've had a lot of comments and messages come through the socials and the website about what's going on. So, Ray, could you give us a bit of insight as to the academy and where we're up to in the process?
Yeah, so obviously it come from listening to the complaints departments of parents in Australia. Obviously, any sport you play is very expensive in Australia. As we all know, if you play football in Europe, where I'm from, football's free. You don't pay for it. So it's always been my vision through the business to try and raise enough money and revenues to try and get to a point where we can help people of Brisbane and of Australia to run a free academy. We're at that point now where we've got trials coming up in January for Brisbane, and they're going to be in December, I believe. And the idea is we are going to start Australia's first full free football academy in week 2 of term 1 in 2025. So we're going through the process of trying to get it out there. It's not just for the so-called elite players within their age group. It's for a whole host of players. It's for boys and girls. We've got 60 places for girls, 60 places for boys, and it's open to all levels and all ability levels. It's aimed at players between 8 and 16 years of age, and that's what we're trying to attract in, and we're offering roughly 10 players for boys and girls at each age group as we go through.
Is this the first time you've done something like this?
Well, we do a lot of our stuff, like our objective testing, the Pro Player Pathway, the Football Forum. It's all free to come. It doesn't cost anything. You can literally come and join us for any of our events, and you can leave at the end of the day and you don't have to spend $1. And that's always my way I like to operate. I like to showcase what we've got to offer. Obviously, with some of our programs, there is a cost involved if you want to work with me and with our team. But yeah, it's the first we've ever done a free academy that's going to be running full time.
And let's talk about the timing of this event, right? So you're looking at running something that starts in term 1 of the school year next year?
Yeah.
And how do people get involved?
So you can go to our website. We've got our links on socials, and you can even drop us an email to service@eurofootballstar.com. We'll send you an application. You can complete the application. Everyone is going to be welcome to come and trial with us. We do a series of tests and interviews to see if you're a fit for the academy, because also what we don't want is we don't want families signing up to it, coming along because it is free, and then not committing to it. We want to make sure the families who are coming with us are really committed to improving in the football, and maybe want to kick on to that next level as well, and we want to help you with that.
Yeah, can you tell us a bit about what you hope that experience is going to be like for kids and parents?
Yeah, one of the big things that we've been conscious of, unfortunately, football and sports in general tends to be very political in the landscape in Australia. Schools don't talk to academies don't talk to clubs, and the communication's really poor. We're trying to open up that communication. So what we're saying is, if you're part of a club, if you're part of another private academy, if you're part of a school, we embrace that. We want this to be a bolt-on top of everything you're doing. If you want to be successful in any sport and anything in life, you need to practice lots and lots. So as a player, if you're 10 years of age, you should be doing about 11 hours a week of sport, of which 7 or 8 should be football. So for most players, they might play at a club, let's say, as an example, in Brisbane, you've got, say, Brisbane City. You could be part of their academy, and you train them 3 nights a week, and you're playing a game of a weekend. Now, for any boys and girls and families who've got aspirations of the son or daughter, maybe playing A-League or W League or Premier League one day, or in Europe, you need to do more. You cannot do 3 sessions a week and 1 game of a weekend and aspire to make it. So what we've done is we've added this on so players can come and join us. We're going to have 2 opportunities of a morning, 2 different mornings, 2 different afternoon sessions, and we're looking for a commitment of a player to commit to at least 2 sessions a week, 1 morning and 1 afternoon. It's going to top up those vital hours that they're not getting to make it potentially as a pro, and also to get a different perspective in coaching, because the curriculum that we're going to follow is the same curriculum that I worked on for many years in the Premier League, where we developed superstars like Jude Bellingham, Phil Foden, Lauren James, Trent Alexander-Arnold. There's many players I've worked with over the years, so it's going to give them that little bit of European flavour. And again, it's not to go against the clubs or current academies they're with, it's to complement what they're currently doing.
Yeah, that's really interesting here, because you've, throughout the other episodes that we've had and the presentations that we watched, one of the things you talk about often is the amount of football that kids should be playing. So essentially, are you talking about extra training? Are we talking about extra competition? Are we talking about extra touches? What do you, like everything?
Yeah, it's extra training and extra touches. So one of the big things we learned when I worked in the Premier League, and I worked on a big, huge Premier League review back in 2010 all the way through to 2014, was the kids in England at the time weren't touching the ball enough, and the more repetition and the more consistent you get with your touches and the more you're on the ball, the better you get. Also, what we do is we do very heavily individualised sessions. So even though they're in a group setting with maybe 10 players in the squad, they will touch the ball 5,000 to 6,000 times within an hour or 90 minutes. And that's what we're looking to do, is increase all those individual touches of the ball. Once players are able to manipulate the ball and the more they touch it, naturally agility, balance, and that will all sort of come together, the coordination and then speed. So we call that the ABCs in England.
Can you help me understand a bit about the academy system in the UK? Are you trying to replicate it, or are you just trying to add to what Australia has to offer?
Yeah, I think to try and go to a full model like we've got in England, where you're an academy player at, say, Liverpool Football Club, and you're training 5 nights a week, 5 mornings, and you're playing a game of a week, and that's going to be very hard to replicate. So we understand that there's a paid model in Australia, and I get that. But what we're trying to do is, for all those families who are paying at clubs and other private academies, we want to try and offer something for free. So those guys who want to make it as a pro and kick on with the football, whether they be a girl or a boy, there's an opportunity to get this extra academy training for free, and they're going to be with the highest qualified coaches and arguably the best curriculum on the planet, because this curriculum is the same curriculum that produces Premier League stars every year.
Why are we going to the trouble? Like you've created a successful program. We're putting players into Europe. Why are you going to the trouble of putting this together?
I'm trying to set an example. Like, one of the big things is that it really frustrates me that I've been here 18 years and you've got, Football Federation Australia can quite easily, if I can do this as a one-man band and I'm able to set this academy up for free, I'm trying to set an example and try and put a stone in the water, so to speak, to create some waves, because I just find that, unfortunately, sometimes there's too many blockers or excuses. So I think by me setting an example as a one-man band who set the business up, Euro Football Star, we're now at the point where we're nearly at 20 members of staff, and we're now able to offer this free academy. If I can do it, then surely the federation or the state federations can start to look to do this. And I'm just trying to showcase and give them an example that it's possible. And I think my vision and my dream is, by the time I come to retire when I'm 65, 70, 75, I'm hoping that we don't have this problem anymore, that there is an opportunity, no matter your age or your financial situation, your son and daughter can go and play football. And for the ones who are talented and the ones who've worked at it to become talented, they shouldn't be paying $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 a year. It should be free. It should be free, and it shouldn't stop you joining the sport. Finances shouldn't come into it.
Can I get a bit more information on the type of training you want to put forward? You mentioned you're going to follow the UK system, but what does that actually mean?
So one of the big things that we changed within England, we realised that we needed to follow a bit more of a plan and have a strategy. So we went right back down to the grassroots, and we identified there was what's called the 4-corner model. So it's identifying physical, technical, tactical, and social elements of training. So you need to make sure you encompass those 4 corners into your session, into your game, or whatever it is you're preparing. Also, one of the big things that we've done in the UK, we created a course for coaches called the Youth Award modules. And it's actually recognising that players aged 8 to 11 need something different than players aged 12 to 15. So it's going through what we call a youth phase, which is players aged 8 all the way through to 18. So it's identifying that players are at different parts of growth and going through adolescence, and also they require different teachings, and the level and the sort of the technical aspect of it, what we're going to showcase and educate the kids with is just going to be second to none.
For those that have followed you in the pro player pathway, do you need to be part of this program, or are you going to force people to be part of this program?
Not necessarily, no. Like we've said to our families on the pro player pathway, look, if you're based in and around Brisbane, by all means come and apply. Obviously, because they're following a lot of our protocols and our pillars to our program, they definitely are going to have an advantage, but we are definitely not saying you need to be on our pro player pathway and paying us for that program to get the free academy. We will choose players based on ability levels, desire to be in the game, and basically the main thing is committing to the program. We don't want players coming, and this is the big thing, we are going to be charting, so it's going to be a minimum of 2 and a max of 4 sessions a week. Anyone who misses more than 2 sessions in a term will be pulled in for a meeting and they will be removed from the program. Now, obviously, if people are sick or ill, we'll consider that. But yeah, we definitely don't want people who are signing up and then are not turning up to it.
How will being on a...
Well, it's the shortage in the hours. So there is a lot of players around the country who do club and private academy. But even then, sometimes it's still not enough hours. The 30 that we discovered when we done the research in the Premier League, it's called +1, your age. So if you are 12 years of age, you should be doing 13 hours. If you're 16, you should be doing 17. It does peter out at 16, so 17 hours a week would be your max. But of that amount of hours you're meant to do based on your age +1, 70% is specific to your sport, so football. So if you're 9, you should be doing 10 hours a week. 7 hours of football, 3 hours are non-specific to the game, which will be running, swimming, bike, recovery walks, walking the dog. That's how you would manage your hours. And players are basically, and families are sort of uneducated to the point where they think by paying $4,000 a year in fees to the NPL or SAP that the son or daughter is going to be good enough, and they get a rude awakening when they go to Europe and they have an opportunity. So it's to fill that gap of missing hours.
So can you give me some specifics on the type of training and who will be running it, who will be taking care of the actual sessions?
Yeah. So that I'll go back a level. What we discovered in the Premier League was it wasn't necessarily about the level of the coach or the qualification the coach holds. It was more around the curriculum and the format of the session and setting the environment. Unfortunately, in Australia, we get a little bit carried away that, you know, I've heard parents say, oh, my son's coach is an A-licensed coach. It doesn't always mean your son's getting developed the best. And that's not a go with that particular coach. But what we discovered in England was setting the environment right and following a particular curriculum to guarantee success. You could have what we would consider as maybe a non-licensed coach who could deliver it because they've got the personality to connect with the kids and deliver that session. So the curriculum that we're going to follow is designed by me. I've worked on the world's biggest football project where the Premier League spent £1.6 billion, so just over $3 million. I'm going to design and fully set up the curriculum. The programme is going to be run by our head of football, but our coaches, again, are going to be more brought in based on things like personality and how they're going to connect with the players. And they're basically there to facilitate the session, not to necessarily give them words of wisdom like a Jose Mourinho or an Alex Ferguson. We want our curriculum to be followed, and if the players are consistent and they come in and follow our curriculum, they will 100% get better.
There's a lot in what you've described. How intense, how serious is it going to be? We're still talking about kids, right?
Yeah, so again, like we've got players coming in from the ages of about 9 and 10 upwards to 16. Obviously, we want it to be fun for them, but also there is a level of seriousness as well, because these are boys and girls who are already doing so much football and really want to push on and kick on with the football. So it's that balance again, and that's where the curriculum, the way we've designed it, it will give us that balance of fun, but also it's got to be serious as well. And what we mean by that is as well as turning up on time, not being late. It's no different than in England. If you're at a Premier League club and you're in an academy at, say, Manchester City, if your son or daughter's late once or twice within a couple of weeks and then you're missing too many sessions, you will be pulled in the office and you will be told there's another 1,000.
There's a fair bit in that, Ray. What are you hoping to... Where do you want to take this program? What's the plan?
The plan is hopefully we open up one of these in every major state of the country. So the idea is Brisbane for January 2025. Then the following January we're looking for Sydney. And then we're going to look for Melbourne and then also Perth as well. I mean, in an ideal world, maybe we could roll 2 a year, but we've got to just go in small steps. Then, you know, again, we're open to the likes of the Football Federation Australia, any of the state federations. If they want to come and have a look, they want to come and speak to us to see how we're doing it and how we're providing the funding for it. I'd love to share it all because I would love more venues and more academies to be offering this as well.
Thanks for your time, mate. I think that there's a bunch of info in there for everyone.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, it's still there, just about,
I only
getting old these days, so the memory, to remember what's there.
The only one I ever learned was Mum and Dad used to take us every year to Spain religiously. That was our holiday every year.
Was a lot.
It was Cuatro Cerveza, por favor.
Yeah.
That's all I ever remembered learning, and I remember walking around saying that lots, and then someone saying to me, "Do you know you ordered them 4 beers every time?"
Yeah, I was going to say, so your mum and dad took you there on holiday, but you're ordering 4 beers. Dad must have liked a beer.
He loved a few beers. So it must have been a a great upbringing, having that opportunity to travel and to get into Spain and to get into France and to be part of that, because that's like one of the things that we spoke about off air a little bit. But with our program, what we do is we've got this real niche program called the Pro Player Pathway, and I discovered the gap really that was missing, that you've got like kids who are lucky enough to be at academies. So like you said you got your opportunity to go to Southampton, but unfortunately you got injured, and that was the end of that.
Yeah, I don't think it was going too far anyway, but
anyway. Then you've got the other side is, the kids who are in the academies then get picked up by agents and so on. But what about the kids who really want to make it and just don't know what to do to get there? And that's what we've done with this book and this program. And it's been game-changing, because one of my biggest 2 things that I've loved to do in life is I was never good enough to make it as a pro. And I always knew at 15 and 16 I was a million miles away a few of my mates. I mean, I'm growing up with like Stephen Gerrard, Carragher, all these boys who you knew were training 8-9 times a week, and I was training once a week, because Mum and Dad were doing 70-hour week jobs, minimum wage. They just couldn't get me to football.
Yeah.
So I devised the program to give kids an opportunity to teach them what it is you need to do to make it, the foundations, because we discovered that 70% of what you do outside the club actually makes up whether you're going to make it or not as a pro.
Right.
We've done a lot of research at the Premier League into players like Beckham and why he was so good and why he made it, and it was a lot of the stuff they were doing externally from the clubs.
Yep.
And then the big thing, passion of mine is like yourself, is travel. And this is one of the things that we've done with this program, is that for the players that go on and make it, they get to travel into Europe and the UK, which is a great thing for an Aussie or an American. But also, we also then have a plan B and a plan C. So if football doesn't work out, they could get a job in football with us and through us, whether it's a physio, a sports scientist or something like that, or they can just do normal academics and go down a normal route. So that's a little bit about my passion and the reason.
Yeah, I think that's incredible. I mean, the chance for any kid to go and experience a different culture, go and live in a different country is unrivaled. I mean, I think that's probably the best thing you could ever offer a kid.
Yeah.
And in that same vein, my wife and I are looking at moving to Spain potentially for a year before my daughter gets too old, because we'd like her to experience a different culture. And yeah, as I said, we were there recently, and she was, chatting to the waitresses and waiters, and it's just phenomenal to see. It just brings, incredible joy to myself to see my daughter practicing Spanish in a restaurant. And we're doing a little bit of Spanish coaching with some of her classmates at the moment, and it's phenomenal. It's great to see, and so to your credit, to give children the opportunity to go overseas, it's something that I would encourage every parent to look at, and great if the football works out, fantastic. But worst case scenario, they've had a bit of a cultural difference and the chance to go and see a different country and
how old
see
are
other
your little
countries.
ones?
No, I've only got one.
Just one.
Not crazy
How
enough
old
to go
is
for
she?
2. She's 7, going on 17.
Yeah. I've got one of them.
But she'll be 8 in October. So growing up far too fast.
Yeah. We very, very lucky ourselves through the job and through work. My eldest girl's a tennis player. She's 15 now. She goes to Spain probably 5 to 6 weeks every year, and we always go with her. And I love it. I love Spain, and it's definitely a place I think I could definitely set up for 3-4 months of the year, and just to embrace the language and not order 4 beers every time I go to the bar. Guys, we're just going to go to our next ad break before we come into our final section. Just enjoy this next ad break, and we'll be back with you in a few minutes.
Would you like to make it as a professional footballer? My friend Ray Wood has written this amazing book, The Pro Player Pathway, that gives you the secret to becoming a professional.
Hi everyone, this is Raymond Woods. We're just back for the final part with George. So we've been chatting a little bit about passion, we've been chatting about sport, we've speaking a little bit about George's backgrounds as well and growing up in England. And this all culminates to about opportunities for children, but also about fundraising and charities. So one of the big things that we've done for you, George, for the Barmies, we've recently just been on a tour to the USA, and we've got a signed John Barnes jersey. So not many of the younger ones will know who John Barnes is, but I'll hand that over to you.
Absolutely phenomenal. Thank you very much indeed. I can't thank you enough for that. I have to make a cheeky personal bid on that one, John. John Barnes was an absolute idol growing up.
Yeah, he was. We just done about 2 weeks in the USA, and John supported us. We had events in New York, Toronto, Chicago, Houston, and LA, and he was amazing. He was my idol growing up, as probably many other people's idols. But I grew up in Anfield. I grew up on a street called Prairie Road. My mum owned the bottle shop there. And him and John Aldridge used to come in every day and used to purchase a bottle. It's so funny now when I think about it, a bottle of Perrier water, because they thought sparkling water was healthy in the 80s. So, yeah. And when he first moved to Liverpool, he ironically lived above a dentist in like in a private apartment. And no one was meant to know, but obviously in Liverpool within 24 hours, everyone knew John Barnes lived at this. So we used to just be sat there every afternoon, every night, and then roll on 25 years later, he's on a tour with me through the US.
That's unbelievably cool.
Yeah. Amazing guy, and we asked him to do a jersey for it, and I'm going to be catching up with him again in September, and he said genuinely from his heart as well, anything for the Brisbane Barmies, give us a yell, and if you need a video, a jersey, anything you need, let us know.
That's brilliant. Thank you so much. On behalf of all of us, we're very, very grateful. That's
so hopefully, we'll only raise, maybe a few $100, but it all helps, I suppose, and as I said, we'll be in contact next week, because we want to really try and see if we can kick off the way you have a golf day. We want to see if we can do a football/soccer day and get all that pumping for you and get you.
Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah, I'm ready to lace the boots up.
That'd be awesome. So for the rest of this year, just before we cap off and finish from this episode, what have you got on from a personal point of view, and also what have you got on from a Brisbane Barmy point of view? And you must be doing a lot of build-up work for next year.
Yeah, well, obviously next year will be massive. So on the Barmies point of view, yeah, next year will be probably our biggest year yet. 2025, Ashes year. As I mentioned earlier, there'll be huge demand for Ashes tickets. We'll be doing our best to try and negotiate as big a portion as they'll give us. Cricket Australia don't love us. I mean, they do love us externally, but they don't love us in the sense that they don't want us all congregated together, because obviously the noise and the support, makes it feel like an away game even for the Aussies. So they tend to try and split us up, but I'll be pushing for as large a section as we can get our hands on. And in terms of charity, obviously every year we say that it's going to be bigger and better, and we'll be doing all we can to raise as much money for whichever charity we choose. And on a personal front, well, it's it's fairly personal, I guess. I've just gone through a cancer battle in the last 12 months, and just been given the all clear recently, actually, in the last couple of weeks. So that's great for me and my family. So I guess, thank you. Yeah. So I guess from a personal perspective, it's just back to work, because I've been a bit of a lazy bugger for the last 12 months. I have to confess that I've probably down tools a little bit. So yeah, it'll be back to work and just trying to earn us a bit of money for the next 12 months before we decide what our next venture might look like. But so that's the next 12 months for us.
So from an exercise point of view, George, do you do much exercise-wise? You run
you can probably tell for those that can see. We play 5-a-side football on a Monday night, just down at Nathan. There's some artificial pitches down there. Yeah. So we just rent a pitch on a Monday night. It's just 10 to 12 guys. We're all John Barnes wannabes. We're probably all from the John Barnes era. Every now and then we get a 19-year-old hotshot who turns up and dances around us. But it's really great, actually, because the level's quite good. We've got a couple of ex-pros play. There's a guy from Scotland who played in the Scottish First Division, and there's a couple of really decent players. But we're all, as I say, we're all just old and wannabe Messis. And we just did that on a Monday night for an hour. Yeah. And actually, it's really good fun. No ref.
Yeah.
Often don't need a ref, really. We're all a group of mates, and it's just a bit of fun. So we do that on a Monday night, and that's about it. And the rest of the time, I'm kept busy coaching my daughter. My daughter plays in an under-7s girls football team, which is a challenge, as you might be able to relate to. Trying to keep 4 players on the pitch at one time is a challenge. They're all plaiting each other's hair, or seeing their cousins across the park and running off in the middle of the match. Having a 7-8-year-old daughter, that keeps me definitely busy.
Keeps you fit.
Keeps me fit. I do a lot of coaching at the local school. The school that my daughter goes to, I coach on a Thursday and Friday morning. We do a sports program for the kids at New Farm State School, which is
amazing.
Which is good fun, and that keeps me fit as well because I tend to throw myself in and end up playing rather than reffing. So it's always good fun.
One question I've got to ask you before we finish. Actually, a mate of mine last week, we were chatting, and I said, I've got you coming on. And he wants to know, and I couldn't tell him, but he said, who is it who wears the Queen Elizabeth mask at the Barmies? And then obviously it's now King Charles, I take it.
Yeah, so that
is it the same person? Or?
Yeah, it's the same person. Yeah, it's the same person. Yeah, so that is Andrew Hale,
okay.
one of our main men. Slightly funny because he's I don't know, Andrew. I'm sorry that I get this wrong. He's got to be 6'6".
He's huge. I remember him at the Ashes.
So he's a 6'6", masculine, massive bloke. He looks great in a dress.
Yeah.
With his handbag and his corgi. The King Charles, I should say. The King Charles outfit is maybe, it's a little more subdued because obviously it's not a 6'6" bloke in a dress. But yeah, no, he's been great, great fun. One of my greatest memories is the tradition is that every time the national anthem plays, he will go out and sort of salute the crowd. Yeah. And during the last Ashes, I was actually sat next to Evan, our fantastic trumpeter, and for about 4 or 5 minutes, I had him playing the national anthem non-stop. So the Queen had to keep going down, saluting everyone in 40 degrees, wearing a mask. He took the mask off and he just went, "Stop playing that." He was just, but it was great fun. It had hoots of laughter. The whole crowd was in hysterics watching that. So, yeah, no, Andy's a great bloke and he does a great job as the Queen, and he'll do a great job as the King for sure.
Fantastic. That's awesome. Thank you so much, George, for
My
joining
pleasure.
us.
Thanks very much.
We'd love to get you back on again in the future just to see how everything's going with the Barmies and see how fundraising's going. And obviously we'll be in touch off here as well to see. We'd love to help you. You'd be one of our main beneficiaries and help you raise.
Yeah, thanks very
money.
much.
Yeah.
Thanks again for the John Barnes shirt, and thanks for everything. That's really appreciated.
Cheers, George.
Cheers.
So, guys, a big thank you for joining me and George. As I said, we'll be back again with another episode, probably closer to the Ashes next year with George, and we'll get some great updates. If anyone's interested to donate to that amazing charity that they're raising funds for, it's all in the show notes below. A big thank you from me at the Rainwood Podcast, and we'll see you on our next episode.
Hi everyone, this is Raymond Wood on the Raymond Wood Podcast. Now we're very, very excited to bring another episode, but also we're super excited to bring one of our players, Nathan Long, who's on our professional player pathway program with us. I believe, Nathan, you are with us. How are you?
Yeah, I'm all good.
Now, where are we speaking to you from, Nathan, for all of our listeners watching or listening?
Perth, Australia. Perth.
Here from Australia. Now, I believe you joined us on our program, was it around about April this year? Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you joined us on our professional player pathway. So what we're going to do is for the next 15, 20 minutes, we're going to walk through our listeners and mums and dads out there who are maybe already on the program or who are considering joining the program. And we're going to walk through some of the pillars of the program and see some of the best bits that you're enjoying, maybe some of the bits you're not enjoying, all the extra effort you're having to put in. So Nathan, you joined us in Perth. You come along to our professional player pathway event and you signed up and registered as one of our new players. You got a scholarship to join us. What was the best bit for you about the event when you come out and first seen it? And what was the one thing that really excited you about the program?
Well, I really enjoyed the objective testing. Like, it was like a good breakdown, and with the event, we actually got recommended by Liam Williams, and he's doing well now overseas. So, like, they recommended it to our family, and then they're like, yeah, definitely, like, sign up. Like, it's worth a shot. So,
yeah, it's a really good one, and I'm glad that you've actually mentioned Liam Williams. So Liam Williams is a player we found just over a year ago from Perth. Since being with us on our pro player pathway, Liam's now successfully moved across to the UK, and he signs with a professional club called Bolton Wanderers Football Club. So it's pretty cool. So you guys were obviously friends in Perth and you were playing together?
oh, yeah, and, like, family, friends as well. Like, go to events and that, whatever.
Now, obviously, we know Liam's a big Everton fan and he supports the blue side of Liverpool. I'm looking at your jersey. You're a little bit more south. You support Arsenal, right?
Yeah.
So who's your favourite player at Arsenal?
Odegaard.
Odegaard, very good. So we had a good summer this year with his national team.
We are super excited. The Professional Player Pathway book is finally here. It's just launched. You can now purchase this book. If you want to learn what it takes to make it as a professional football player, if you've got a son or daughter who's aged between 7 and 8 all the way up to 23, this has got the 7 pillars and the 7 secrets on how to make it in the Premier League, in La Liga, in the top leagues around Europe. The project that I worked on, the Premier League and the FA, spent £1.6 billion to date on this project. It produced players like Lauren James of Chelsea, Jude Bellingham of Real Madrid, Trent Alexander-Arnold of Liverpool, and many, many more. Guys, if you want to make it as a pro, the Professional Player Pathway book is the book for you.
Now, in regards to the Professional Player Pathway, you come along, you've signed up now. We got you on a part scholarship to join us on the programme. Now, we're going to talk a little bit about some of the pillars of the programme. Now, one of the pillars that we do is something called our intolerance testing and DNA testing. Have you had your test done?
Yeah.
And what was, just to explain to the mums and dads out there and anyone who's listening, so our intolerance DNA test, we actually take a hair sample from our players, send it off to a laboratory, and it's the world's first individualised intolerance test. So it flags up any foods, drinks, products, home products that might be causing intolerances in your body, and it might create things like inflammation. So they're things that we want to ward against as a professional football player. What was your results like? What were some of the red things that come up, Nathan, on your test?
It was most like dairy products, and then Weetabix, which I used to have every morning. So we replaced that with porridge, and then chicken was a big one as well. So it's more like other meats now.
Wow, so you had to get rid of the dairy products pretty much. I was the same when I had my test done, and it's not surprising that 80% of our people who get tested actually flag up not to have milk or dairy anymore, because it does actually cause an inflammation, not only in many parts of the body, but we've discovered it causes inflammation in the throat as well, which can affect your breathing, which is a big thing, actually. So was that a big shock for you, Nathan, having to get rid of dairy products, or was you not really into dairy products?
Oh, no, it's probably one of my favourite foods, like, definitely.
Now, the good thing is you can get retested again 6 or 12 months later, and some of those foods that you've removed out your diet, when you re-add them back in, it might actually go off your list. So the good news is we've actually seen players, especially, we've had chicken flag up, which is a really interesting one. About 60% of people get chicken. Now, what we've discovered is with chicken, and it might be good news for you, because do you actually like to eat chicken?
Yeah.
Yeah. What we've discovered is there's a lot of chickens that are not organic that get a lot of hormones and salts and water pumped into them, obviously for the size and the weight, so they can sell them on and make more money on them. What we've discovered is in some of our players and athletes, they've actually started eating organic chicken again, but they've got retested. Chicken has gone off the list. They've re-added it in, and it's been fine. So that's something that we can look at doing. Once you've been with us for about 12 months, if you want to get retested again, we can get that arranged for you and get it booked in, and then we can have a look, and maybe chicken might come back onto your blacklist.
Yeah.
Now, was there anything on there that you was happy that you don't normally eat anyway, but it was on there that you can think of, or anything that you drink or don't drink?
More like nuts and stuff I don't really eat anyway, but yeah.
They come up on your results as well. Now, since you've got those test results, being really honest to all of our listeners, have you pretty much stuck to it, or is there certain things that you're still eating that you shouldn't, or?
No, not like most of it, yeah, definitely. But like switch fully off all the red stuff.
Have you noticed any differences since you've done that, like anything to do with like sleep or recovery or skin or hair?
Yeah, like, well, skin's big one, I reckon, because my skin wasn't that great like a few months ago. And then sleeping as well, yeah, and then I feel like more energy maybe.
Yeah, like, I mean, I'm looking at you and your skin looks phenomenal, and it's funny that being the same, I even in you know, I'm in my 40s, but I did have a lot of problems with like acne and that still.
Yeah.
And since I've done my test, I've removed everything. I was blown away of how good it was, and I wanted to get it done just purely to give it a go and get it tested to see what it was like. But it's been a game changer. Now, one of the other pillars on the program is match analysis. Now, have you had your match analysis done?
Yeah, just a few weeks ago.
So again, for the mums and dads who are watching and listening in, and the other players who may be interested in joining the program, we do a match analysis. We get your game recorded, we send it off to Portugal, it gets analysed, it comes back. We then assign you a coach from England. Then they do a Zoom call with you for 1 hour, so very similar to what we're doing now. And then we draw out your objectives and the bits that we need to work on. So firstly, when you've done your match analysis, if you don't mind sharing it, who did you do it with?
Oh, it was the Tranmere Rovers, Matt Hunter.
Obviously, you did it with Matt Hunter from Tranmere Rovers, amazing. So for anyone who's watching in, Matt Hunter is not only a coach at Tranmere Rovers, which is a professional team from on the outskirts of Liverpool, but also Matt's a FA educator as well and coach educator. So talk to me when you've done your match analysis. What was your first thoughts of it? Do you think it was valuable? Was it not valuable?
Yeah, no, it's definitely valuable, yeah.
So can you remember when you'd done your match analysis with Matt and you went through your objectives? What was the 1 or 2 objectives that you had to start working on straight away? What was flagged up in your game?
Gain, not as much, but you just had to start gaining anyway, just get the foundation. But that wasn't a big concern though. But
what's the one area of your game that you think's got better since you've been doing your objectives? Is the one area that you think I've really got better at in the past couple of months since you started it?
Probably more so body positioning. Because normally I scan to my left because I play on the right. So, but checking both ways now instead.
That's good. And then within our system, for anyone again who's watching and listening who doesn't understand our 7 pillars, the match objectives that get drawn out from the match analysis, we input them to our football plan, which is our web-based portal. So are you still on your first objective at the moment, Nathan, or have you moved on to your second? So you're still on your first objective?
Yeah.
And that's currently scanning at the moment?
Yeah.
And what percentage are you currently at with your achievement? Where are you at with it at the moment?
40s.
You're in the 40s. So what percentage, again, just for our listeners, what percentage have you got to get to before you can move to your next one?
Is it 80?
85%? Yeah. So obviously, that's a good starting point. Most players, when they do scanning, they'll maybe get 10 or 20% at most. But we need players to get to 85%. Once they get to 85%, we give that a big tick, and then we move them on to the second objective. So that's good that you're working through that. So that's obviously your DNA, your match analysis. Now, there's a couple of other pillars in there as well. One of the ones that we do want to talk about as well is the GPS tracker. So one of the pillars is the tracker. So have you found that being valuable, and have you been wearing it as much as possible?
Yeah, I wear it nearly every time actually.
That's great. And what's one of the things that you've noticed since you started wearing the tracker? Is it educating in any way? Is it making you try harder? Is it making you work less?
No, probably more motivating because you can compare yourself with academies around your age as well.
That's really, really good. So one of the big things that we do, again, for the listeners listening in, is we get players to not only train in the GPS trackers, but they wear the trackers on game days. And we record things like the amount of sprints they do in a game, how many accelerations, how many decelerations, what distance they cover, how hard they're working in certain areas of the pitch. The good thing with this is for all of our players is that we know exactly where they're at in comparison to players in the UK and Europe. And we can have that meeting if we don't believe they're working hard enough or if they need to be recording more sessions. So that is a really, really invaluable tool. And as Nathan's just alluded to, he's wearing it as much as possible, which is a great thing to see. Now, out of the 7 pillars, and I've got a feeling I know which one it is, but I'm going to ask you, which is your favourite pillar of the program and why?
Probably the match analysis.
Yeah, it's the one that we get all the time, the match analysis, because I think it not only shows you in that one meeting that you do with the coach the areas you've got to get better at, but it's an invaluable tool because you get the recording and you can watch it back as many times as you can. So out of interest, how many times do you think you've watched it since you've done the meeting?
Like 3.
That's good. One of the things we do encourage the players is to keep watching it at least once a month, once a fortnight, just to keep going over the certain points and objectives that the coaches have spoke to them about. And it's a good way to assist with that. So one of the other pillars is obviously we take players on trials to the UK and to Europe. Now, just for all of our listeners, if you are pushing through your objectives and you get through at least 2 or more, or you're on track to complete 2 or more by the time we're going on trials, you are eligible to come on the trials with us, and that's where we open up opportunities for pro scholarships. So every January, we always visit England, the Premier League, and we take players to academies and pro clubs for trials. In the June, July, we take players to Paris Saint-Germain in France, and also to Spain, to Barcelona. Now, Nathan, for our listeners out there, can you tell us if you are firstly being invited to join any trials, and if you were, have you accepted, and are you going on any next year?
Yeah, is it June, July? The PSG and is it Westpac or was?
Westpac with Barcelona in Spain, yeah. So you're going to be coming along for that. So you must be super excited and pumped for that opportunity.
Yeah.
Now, have you been to France and to Spain before?
Yeah, actually, I have.
Yeah, and did you enjoy it?
Yeah, it's nice.
Would you like to make it as a professional footballer? My friend Ray Wood has written this amazing book, The Pro Player Pathway, that gives you the secret to becoming a professional.
So let's roll forward a year or two and you're going to sign and play professional football. Where would you choose to move and play for? Which team? Would it be a French team, a Spanish team, or would it be somewhere in England? What's your dream?
Probably back to Ireland, maybe.
To where, sorry?
Ireland.
To play in Ireland? Wow, I didn't think that one. So who would you like to go and play for in Ireland?
Like Shamrock Rovers, maybe.
Shamrock Rovers, amazing. So I've actually, many years ago, I done one of my UEFA qualifications with the FAI in Dublin. And we'd done a couple of visits and study visits to Shamrock Rovers. It's an amazing club, amazing people. And I believe one of the guys I was on the course with, he still actually works at Shamrock Rovers. So maybe that's something we could open up for you as well in the next couple of months. So what we'll do is I'll have a chat with the guys at Shamrock and maybe see if we could squeeze that in at some point next year or the following year for you.
Yeah, thanks.
So you're going to be going on the trials in June and July, and we're obviously going to take you to PSG and to Westpac in Barcelona. What's probably one or two of the highlights that you're going to be looking forward to that trip? What's one of the key things you're looking forward to?
Like seeing different levels in Europe, like in comparison. And then, I don't know, it's a good experience or like good thing to have on your record.
Yeah, it's going to be a good thing. It's going to show you the levels in Paris. It'll show you the levels in Barcelona. And then in comparison to England and to Ireland as well. So it's going to be super exciting. Now, what's one of the things that you really want to try and get better at yourself? So we know we've got scanning and you're working on NAFI objectives, but what's the one area in your game, Nathan, that you think you've really got to get better at and that you're going to try and work on over the next 12 months?
Probably my movement, like on and off the ball, like using double movement to get more time on the ball.
Amazing. And again, with that, you can keep an eye on that with your GPS tracker as well. Also, especially when you're monitoring your objectives. So when you're monitoring your objectives and you're doing your scanning, there's a couple of ways for players and mums and dads listening and wondering how we do this. So what we do is there's a couple of ways you can do it. Nathan could play in a game. He could have a friend, a mum or a dad helping him out. And they basically have a piece of paper, pen. If he's working on scanning, every time the ball's coming into Nathan's vicinity, if he remembers to scan across both shoulders, that goes down as a big tick. If he doesn't scan at all, or he only scans on one shoulder, it goes down as a cross. And at the end of the game, if he gets 5 successful, 5 unsuccessful, he inputs that into the system and it gives him a success rate of 50%. The other way you can do it, you can get a recording of your game. And this is one of the things that we really encourage the players to do at least a couple of times a year, is watch 1 or 2 or more of the games back and actually record their score themselves by watching the game. So out of curiosity, Nathan, how are you recording your scanning at the moment?
Like watching back the videos, like, yeah.
That's
I know,
amazing.
yeah, I know put in like 2 times speed is, it does take a while to get through it.
Yeah, it does, and it is quite long process. However, what we discovered in the Premier League was when I worked at Leicester City, and they're a Category 1 academy, so they're a top-level academy in England. We discovered that by getting the players to watch the game back and watch for objectives, it was actually a good way to realise areas that they aren't doing well in the game, but areas that they were doing well in as well. So are you finding when you watch the game back, you're actually noticing things like you're not moving into spaces and you are getting a bit static?
Yeah.
That must be invaluable for your game, that you don't necessarily have to hear that from the coach. You can actually see it yourself and you're aware that it's going on.
Yeah.
Now, in regards and into comparison, before you come to the pro player pathway and you joined us on the programme, do you think it's been a big help and a big advantage to being on the programme?
Yeah, definitely. Like, especially like knowing about like how much hours I need to get in a week. Like normally I wasn't doing much before, but like I'm really working the hours.
So how many hours a week are you currently doing at the moment, Nathan, just so our listeners can get an idea of what you've got to do?
It's 16 plus 1, so 17 hours.
And of those 17 hours, you're doing about 70% football, and then the rest is things like other sports, recovery. So within your 11 or 12 hours, obviously you're doing football. What you do outside of football for the other 4 to 5 hours? Can you explain to our listeners some of the things that you do?
I do a lot of running, like cross country, like maybe the gym in the morning, go to the gyms, or like swim, so like recovery wise.
That's amazing. And again, you've obviously noticed since you've upped your hours, you feel like your game's getting a lot better. You look forward to working with you over the next few years, Nathan, and hopefully maybe one day pulling on that jersey for Shamrock Rovers or maybe Arsenal.
Yeah.
That sounds amazing. Well, a big thank you, Nathan, for joining us. And a big thank you from me at the Raymond's World Podcast. Again, if you want more information, you can go to proplayerpathway.com, or you can go to eurofootballstar.com, or you can drop us an email to service@eurofootballstar.com, and all of our contact website links are in our show notes below. And we're going to wish Nathan the best of luck for the future. So big thank you from me and Nathan and everyone at the Raymond's World Podcast. Have a great day. Hi everyone, this is Raymond Wood at the Raymond Wood Podcast. We've got a special edition. We've got a podcast with my friend John Barnes. We're going to be splitting this into 3 sections and 3 different parts. We're going to learn a little bit about John's life before he played football, and we're filming live in Chicago today. The second part is going to be coming from Houston, where we're going to talk about John's career at Liverpool, at Watford, and playing for England as well. And then the third part and the final part is going to be recorded in Los Angeles, which is going to be a phenomenal venue. And we're going to talk a little bit about what John's doing post-football, post his career as a coach and as a player, and what he's up to at the moment. So a big welcome to you, John, onto my podcast.
Sorry for being a bit sweaty, it's a bit hot.
It's been a really warm day today in Chicago. It's been about 30 degrees, and we actually got caught out sweating, running around as well. Now, John, we've obviously had you in our events over the past couple of days, and one of the interesting things that I discovered about you that I never knew was about your life in Jamaica and growing up in the background with your parents. So
Could you maybe start from the early days when you first started playing football as a junior? And I love the story about your dad and your dad's background.
Well, first of all, I mean, it's that at the outset, that is my life before football. There was no life before football. I started playing football when I was 3 years old.
Wow.
As all kids do.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously not even thinking about being a professional footballer, but growing up in Jamaica, like growing up anywhere, be it Australia, be it America, be it anywhere, Africa, anywhere you are, people play football. And that's what I did. Particularly, this was, I was born in 1963. So throughout as far back as I can remember, that was what I did. My father was a colonel in the army, and he came to Sandhurst, which is the officer training, British Army officer training, because of course Jamaica was a colony, and anybody from even Australia, when it was a colony, Africa, any country which was a British colony, if you wanted to be an army officer in your own country, you had to come to Sandhurst, because obviously, Jamaica was a colony. So he came to Sandhurst with Andrew Parker Bowles, was his best friend. That's Camilla's husband, ex-husband, should I say, because of course Camilla is now married to the king. So he was at my mum and dad's wedding. They were classmates at Sandhurst. But my father, being a British Army officer, of course he's from Trinidad, but grew up in Jamaica as an Army officer, discipline was the most important thing. And my father understood that there are going to be hardships, coming from one of the colonies into a camp where you have Winston Churchill and the old quintessential English gentleman used to go, and you're coming from Jamaica, and you had probably, you had officers from Ghana and from all over. So he knew he had to be disciplined, he had to be determined, he had to be stoic. He also had to show them that he's equally as good as them, if not better. So he volunteered for everything. So my father then became heavyweight boxing champion in Sandhurst, never boxed before.
Wow.
Played rugby for Sandhurst, never played rugby before, but he then became the fullback. So whatever, and he just volunteered for everything. He actually played football himself for Jamaica, as much as he's an army officer, not professionally, but being an army officer, he had a lot of discipline. So he played football for Jamaica. He then played squash for Jamaica. When he got older, my sister swam for Jamaica. She played squash for Jamaica. My other sister played tennis for Jamaica. So I think you can figure out that I came from a very sporting background. So growing up in Jamaica, sport was everything, but not just sport. It's about the discipline and the attitude necessary for you to be successful in sport.
A lot of people are always wondering why a lot of the athletes who come from Jamaica are so successful, and the obvious one is yourself. And then moving a little bit later on, Usain Bolt. Do you think it's down to discipline?
Well, of course. But never mind myself, who's a footballer, talk about Usain Bolt. But before him, there's Asafa Powell, Don Quarry, Merle Notti. The Jamaican sprinters are much more successful than any Jamaican footballer, myself included.
Yeah.
Because, I came from Jamaica, but was brought up in England since I was 13 years old. But Jamaica always had, from the 70s, a lot of good sprinters.
Yeah.
Now, they're no different to Black Americans.
Yeah.
Genetically, they're no different to, and there are many more, millions more Black Americans. So how can Jamaica, a country of 2.5 million people, produce so many good sprinters? And you can see them in the Olympics throughout, and the girls as well. Shelly Ann Fraser, they have so many good sprinters because they have the support.
Yeah.
When I was growing up in Jamaica, and this is not just something new, when I grew up in Jamaica, if you could sprint, you were running in the National Stadium in front of 40,000 people at the age of 9 and 10.
That's crazy.
Because they supported it. Because obviously you don't need anything to be able to run, so you can sprint. But it is well supported and is well funded, and they're well trained. So I always say, if Africa had that funding and that support, then of course you'd have lots of black sprinters from Africa. There are hundreds of millions. But of course they don't. Whereas in Jamaica, it is a culture.
Yeah.
And the culture starts from when you're young. And it's not just about your physical ability, it's about the training that you get, because Jamaica is not a rich country, so they don't, give you lots of money. But the interesting thing about that is from the 70s, a lot of the Jamaican athletes used to come up to American university when they're 16, 17, 18, go to American universities. Yes, they're running for Jamaica, but they came to America to be trained and to be developed. Since Usain Bolt's time, probably about 15 years ago, they started to not come to America. They started to train in Jamaica because they understood that the qualities necessary, the training, attitudes, and the food and the nutrition and the information, you don't have to come to America to get that. You can get that anywhere. And I suppose if you talk about what you're doing in Australia and here, you don't need to go to Europe initially if you're young to be able to develop in the same way. So that is why the Jamaican sprinters, ever since the 70s and 80s, were always able to compete.
Yeah. Just touching on a little bit more as well with the whole DNA and the makeup. One of the studies and researches I done at Loughborough University when I was at Leicester, it was really interesting that we actually discovered that 82% of white Europeans have fast twitch fibers as well. And it was really crazy to read that. And then I was thinking, well, if there's a lot of white European backgrounds who've got it, why aren't they doing so well in athletics? But then you look at Jonathan Edwards, who was the triple jumper.
Yeah.
His records will never be beat, I don't think.
No, absolutely. It's a cultural thing because, of course, you have to go through it. And interestingly, it is not just from a racial perspective, because if you look at black East Africans to black West Africans, Jamaicans, Americans are West Africans. In the slave trade, that's where they came from to go to America and Jamaica and the New World in the Caribbean.
Yeah.
And they're genetically, as much as they have the same color, they're different to the East Africans.
Yeah.
So if you look at the East Africans, they're better long distance runners.
Yeah.
Ethiopians, Tanzanians, Kenyans, because as much as they're both black from a racial perspective, genetically, they're different.
Yeah.
So therefore, you don't get many black Ethiopian sprinters and black Kenyan sprinters. And of course, the black Americans are from West Africa, so therefore they're different body types. So genetics does play a big part in it. But once again, unless you're going to be able to put those genetics to good use in terms of not just the information in terms of how to train and what to eat, you also have to have an environment which encourages you to train, to do, because of course, from a genetics point of view, you don't have those genetics that you can just run. You have to then put the work in.
You got to put the work in. And again, I think that all goes back to that discipline, doesn't it? And having that structure. So let's talk about, like you said, you were 3 years of age, you started kicking your first ball. Who was your first influence? Was it an uncle and aunt? Was it your dad? Was it mom? Was it cousins?
Absolutely my dad. Absolutely my father, because my father always, because he's very sporty. I mean, he's a colonel in the army, so first of all, discipline is important.
Yeah.
And secondly, from a sporting perspective, interestingly, I swam competitively from the age of 7. We used to swim in Miami. My sisters used to come and swim internationally, and I came to swim in Miami on the 10s when I was 9 years old from Jamaica in an international meet for my swim club, Marlin. But what used to happen when I got to, I've always played lots of sport, but we lived near the stadium pool in Jamaica. We used to walk to go to training every day, swimming practice every day. And every now and again I'll stop off to play football. And my dad said, if you're not going to take this seriously and not go to swimming practice every day, because you could always play football at other times, he said, stop swimming. So my dad always said, unless you're going to do it with authenticity in terms of putting the effort in. So he wanted me to go to training every day. And because every now and again I'd stop off and play football with my friends, he said, stop swimming.
Yeah.
So my dad always said, whatever you're going to do, you give it 100% commitment.
What was your stroke at swimming? Was the one
Breaststroke.
Breaststroke,
Yeah.
That was your preferred?
Yeah, breaststroke was what I did. My sister did IM, she did backstroke freestyle, butterfly. She did the individual medley. She was very good. And once again, because sport generally, or just not just sport, but in terms of education, you put your mind to it, you can do it. My sister then didn't take up squash until she was like 20.
Yeah.
And then at 25, she was playing squash for Jamaica. So and she was a good squash player, but she worked really hard. And my dad always said, whatever you're going to do, you have to work really hard at it.
So it sounds like from a young age you were doing a lot of sports. And what age was it when you started to really specialise into football, where you probably got rid of the most of the sports? Was it in the teenage years?
I didn't really get rid of it because, of course, at school, I only went to a rugby school in England. I didn't play football at school. I played for a local football club. But I played rugby at school only. So then I played rugby for London schools. We had London school trials because I could run. So I'm playing rugby up until the age of 15. That's when I gave up. Because in Australia, when you get to 15, 16, you get those big boys who want to really hurt you. I was a good runner. I could pass. I could move. But then all of a sudden in these trials, these boys were trying to kill me.
You get a few of those Kiwis coming after you.
I played cricket. I played at Middlesex when I was 13, 14.
Yeah.
So as much as I played football, because I wasn't concentrating on being a professional footballer, that's my favorite sport, so I loved it. But I played cricket because I loved it. I played rugby. I played table tennis. I played squash. I played all sports. And I didn't know I was going to be a professional footballer until I was 16 and a half, and I became one at 17. So I wasn't then thinking at 13, 14, 15, I'm not going to concentrate on other sports. I played sports because I loved playing sports, but football was always the easier and the more accessible sport.
More natural. Yeah. It's really, this as well, it's very political and topical on early specialisation and doing a mix. And what we discovered in the Premier League and the English FA when we worked on the CPPP project, and it was through Loughborough Uni, we actually discovered that doing a multiple set of sports at a young age, all the way through up until teenage years, actually built up what was called a foundational base. And the foundational base was building up agility, balance, coordination and speed. And we actually discovered as well something that was really, really interesting. To be able to create fast twitch fibres, you need to build up a base of slow twitch fibres first. And then on top, your fast twitch fibres grows and develops. So it's really interesting to see that you, within that case, sort of like doing all those foundations, you were doing a lot of different sports, swimming, you said you were doing rugby, and football wasn't really specialised until you were 16.
Yeah, but the thing about it is that because, of course, you look at the correlation and the crossover between sports as much as you don't think. Because, for example, for goalkeepers, you look at footwork. Now, if you look at the way tennis players play tennis, they never cross their legs when they run across. They move sideways, and the goalkeepers do.
Yeah.
So you have boxers.
Yeah,
So therefore,
split step.
and as much as even when I did box as well, till they started to hit me too hard, I went to boxing training, and I love boxing. I was a really good boxer, and I love training with my friends. I played at the YMCA, but every time there was a boxing event to box somebody you didn't know, I said, I'm not interested in that. But the footwork involved. So therefore, and this is not, I mean, now they're teaching you how to do it, and they're telling you that specifically this is what you do. But when you learn it by just doing it with a boxing coach, for example, I'm not thinking about my footwork for football, but it comes naturally. You know, you don't cross your legs in football either. You know, you move sideways. So all of these sports helps you in football because, of course, there are different dynamics, changing, you know, angle, changing directions. I play a lot of squash where you got to come forward, you got to come back to the middle, you move sideways, you move in and out, you move. So of course, now in football, they teach you all of this specifically for football.
Yeah.
But a lot of other sports gives you an idea for football in terms of the movements that you have to make subconsciously without even thinking about it.
Without even thinking about it. So we move on a little bit as you get more into closer to your teens. At what age was it when you first had that first experience of going overseas and leaving Jamaica? Was it 12, 11?
Well, I was going, as I said, we were going to Miami. Jamaica's an hour from Miami, so I know family and lots of Jamaicans go up there. So I was going to Miami, you know, very regularly, two times a year, 3 times a year. We swam there and played football in Miami when I was younger, because in Miami they've got a big Hispanic population, so they always played football. So even when I was young, you know, I'd go up and play football. But of course, I then came to England when I was 12, 13 years old, permanently to emigrate. But before then, America, we didn't go anywhere else really, because our cousins in Miami, so we didn't really go around. So mainly from a swimming perspective, my sister swam in Colombia, they swam all over. So yeah, we were always well-traveled, but mainly just to America.
And just to finish on this little mini segment before we go to an ad break, but Miami and the football's getting huge then, you know, I'm probably going to talk about David Beckham. He's doing a great thing as well for the game over in the USA. Do you actually know David fairly well? Have you met him?
I don't know if I met him, but I don't know him that well, but I have met him. But, you know, like anything else, football has been around for a long time.
A long time.
You know, as I said, at his 19... born in 63, by the early 70s I was coming to Miami. A friend of mine was coaching in Miami back then, and I used to come even when I was 11 and 12 years old, playing Miami Classics against the teams from Miami, from Jamaica. So, you know, as much as we're thinking that this is new, this has been around for a long time, it's much more professional, it's much more organized, it's much better funded. But even back then, we were coming up to Miami to play football matches back then in the early 70s.
Yeah, I mean, we had Pele, didn't we go there? Was it in the 70s?
Of course, Pele came, Franz Beckenbauer, Johan Cruyff, they all came.
So we've had big superstars.
But then what you didn't have is that many local players playing. They brought the superstars over, whereas now you have loads of local players. The one thing I would say about that, though, is, and which could really help America to grow even more, is if they, you know, stop viewing it as a middle-class sport. Yeah. You know, if you get the athletes who are playing American football, baseball, basketball, the real athletes, and they play soccer, because of course the best athletes in England and wherever, I'm not talking about specifically for boxing or sprinting, but just athletics generally, you know, everybody wants to play football, whereas here football seems to be either a middle class sport or a sport for immigrants in terms of whether you're Hispanic or you're from, you know, whereas the local American kids, it's only the middle class college kids who play football. If that changed, you really see America growing.
Amazing. A big thank you, John. We're going to go to our first ad break, but when we come back, we're going to do a little bit of magic. We're going to leave Chicago and we're going to skip all the way across to Houston, and we'll come back with our second part where we're going to talk about John's life, signing and playing professional football at Watford, moving on to Liverpool, and a little bit about England. Watch this space, listen to the advertisements, and we'll be back in a few minutes.
And it won't be as sweaty in Houston, although it's hotter.
Thanks, John, and thanks everyone for listening in. We are super excited. The Professional Player Pathway book is finally here. It's just launched. You can now purchase this book. If you want to learn what it takes to make it as a professional football player, if you've got a son or daughter who's aged between 7 and 8 all the way up to 23, this has got the 7 pillars and the 7 secrets on how to make it in the Premier League, in La Liga, in the top leagues around Europe. The project that I worked on, the Premier League and the FA, spent £1.6 billion to date on this project. It produced players like Lauren James of Chelsea, Jude Bellingham of Real Madrid, Trent Alexander-Arnold of Liverpool, and many, many more. Guys, if you want to make it as a pro, the Professional Player Pathway book is the book for you. Hi everyone, we're back from our ad break. It's the second part of the podcast with John Barnes. Now, thank you to Modern Technology. We've just come all the way from Chicago. We're now magically in Houston. Welcome back, John.
Thank you very much. Equally as hot, but not as sweaty.
Now, we're going to speak to John about his illustrious Liverpool career and how he first heard about getting the opportunity to sign for Liverpool. But obviously, you spoke to us about your career at Watford and then going into Liverpool. So if you can explain a little bit about the background and the amount of time that you spent at Watford, and then obviously when that first opportunity come to come for Liverpool.
Well, I was at Watford for 6 years, and this wasn't the first opportunity I had to leave Watford because, of course, I'd been there for 6 years. I'd been playing for England for 3-4 years before I even went to Liverpool. The goal against Brazil was when I was 20 years old, and I had another 3 years at Watford. So in between then, I'm sure that opportunities, like AC Milan may have been interested in another club, but I stayed at Watford for 6 years. And Graham Taylor's the one who actually said to me, you are going to go to Liverpool. Because he said, that's the right club for you. The time is now right for you to go. You've done your apprenticeship, if you like, because now what happens in football is that the young player plays well for 1 year at a decent club, and then he costs £80 million and goes to a club and he sees inconsistency because he's not shown he's at a level of consistency over a period of time, which will then warrant you coming to a big club to know that you're going to hit the ground running, you're going to do well, and you're going to be consistent. Peter Beardsley was at Newcastle for 6 years. John Aldridge was away at Oxford and Newport for 6, 7, 8 years before he even came to Liverpool. So back then, clubs really did their homework on you to know, yes, you're a good player, but can you prove year in, year out that you can do this? And that's when Graham Taylor actually came to me and he said, Liverpool have come in for you and you're going to go to Liverpool. They came in January 1987 because then you could have gone at any time. There's no transfer window. But he said that, okay, you're going to go at the end of the season. You're not going to go to Liverpool now because... and he's right, and I still believe it, that mid-season is not a time for you to go to a club because you have to bed in new culture, new system, new teammates. You've got to get used to the tactics. So it's always good to go at the start of the season where you can have a good pre-season, physically, mentally, getting used to the players, getting used to the system, the tactics. So I then went to Liverpool at the beginning of '87. And Peter Beardsley came at the same time as me. About a week later, he was the most expensive player. So it was a bit of a change for Liverpool because Rushian had gone to Juventus, Kenny had retired. So it was really, me and Peter and John Aldridge really were to replace those two.
To try and replace them. So you went to Liverpool in '87. And that first pre-season, what was it like when you first hit the training grounds with joining all the new Liverpool players? And was you nervous? Was you confident? Was there any players who really stood out to you?
Well, as I said, I've been playing football for 6 years. I've been playing for England for 3 years. I've been playing in the England squad with Liverpool players. So I wasn't obviously apprehensive, but I wasn't nervous because I knew my preparation was such for the last 6 years that I was able to play. I was able to perform, and I played against Liverpool many times. So while there's a bit of apprehension, there wasn't any nerves. And obviously I felt that these Liverpool, but I know the Liverpool players. And individually, Russian Dalglish, but they weren't there anymore. But the Liverpool team were still the best team. But which was amazing to me because if you look at them individually, apart from obviously Russian Dalglish, the rest of them, the Ronnie Whelans and the Steve McMahon and the Stevie Nichols, Alan Hansen was special. But, Jim Beglin, it was like, well, they're not superstar players. How come they're the best team in Europe? And it really was the Liverpool way.
Yeah.
And then I got into learning the Liverpool way, which came from Bill Shankly through to Bob Page to Joe Fagan to Kenny, and just learning about the Liverpool way. So therefore, as much as I was a better or more even senior player than a lot of Liverpool players in terms of my experience and the fact that I'm playing for England, I had to learn from them the Liverpool way. And that's what Liverpool did. They looked at players who they thought could fit into the Liverpool way. I came from Watford, which is a long ball team. So how can I play the way Liverpool played that from the back? But they saw something in me that I didn't even know I had in myself. Because that's what they do. They don't coach you, but they look at you and they watch you playing for your club and they say, you can fit into what we want without you even knowing it yourself. Because when you get to Liverpool, they don't coach you. You just have to absorb the Liverpool way by learning from what you see from the players who've been there before and done it.
I was born in '79, so around that '87, '88, I was 9 and 10, and we used to spend a lot of time up at the stadium, down to Melwood, climbing that wall, getting past the barbed wire to watch us. And then I remember 10, 15 years later then becoming a coach myself, but thinking back that the glimpses of what we used to see, it didn't look like we seen a lot of coaching. It looked like a lot of small-sided stuff going on.
That's what it was. 6v6, 7v7, 8v8, depending on how many people turned up. But you learned, because that's what football is. Apart from, when you're shooting and crossing or when you're defending and stopping crosses, you're playing in a middle third, whereby it's all about 8v8, keeping the ball, getting into certain positions to be able to deliver the final pass. And that's all we did. We did 5-a-side, didn't do any coaching. Which is really, that's why I'm glad I didn't go to Liverpool at maybe 17. Because at 17, 16, 17, you have to be coached.
Yeah.
Whereas Liverpool didn't bring in young players and put them in the team because they're not going to coach them. They buy players early to mid 20s who had the experience and they saw that you could fit into what they wanted, so they didn't coach us at all. So it was amazing to me how, coming from a team like Watford, from the first week in pre-season doing what I did, it was like I played for them all my life, and it was like I've never played this type of football before. How am I doing it? But they would have known in me that I could actually do it, and I think that they look at the intelligence in terms of how you play for your club, to use your initiative to work things out yourself, because that was Liverpool's mantra: work it out yourself.
I remember growing up and Dad, he was an armchair supporter. He drove wagons all around the country, delivering to like supermarkets, but he even knew it was the Liverpool way. Pass and move, the Liverpool groove. That's like what we grew up with as fans, and it's exactly what you guys were doing, wasn't it?
Well, Ronnie Moran, that's what he said: pass and move, don't stand still, rotating in positions, you know. So there are times when, you know, I would go to left back, Stephen Nicol would come over, and then I knew how to play left back until we could get back into position. So rather than passing and standing still, it wasn't just passing and moving, but moving into a different position, and everybody had to do it. So therefore the formation stayed the same, even if the personnel was different. You know, so the rotation, where Peter Beardsley would drop off into midfield, Simon Mann might run, and Peter Beardsley would become that midfield player. So therefore you always had the shape, and maybe the personnel changes, but the shape to continue to move either offensively or defensively, when all of a sudden Peter Beardsley is the deepest lying midfield player and he has to defend like Ronnie Whelan. But once again, this is something that you have to have the experience to know. You can't be a 16-year-old kid and understand that.
Yeah.
So that is why Liverpool didn't really have all of these youngsters coming through. They bought a lot of young players when they were 21, 22, and then they learned the Liverpool way, but they didn't have 16 and 17-year-old players going into the team.
It's really interesting, you said before as well about like not being coached. You shouldn't be coached at that top level, you just turn up and do your job. But it was one of the things that I wrote about in the book, in the professional player pathways, that we discovered at academy level. Coaching's important for youngsters. You've got to coach them skills, technique, tactics, but we discovered with the English FA and the Premier that we're probably over-coaching them too much. And it was really interesting that we went down the route of 2 sessions a week where we weren't able to coach. We just put them on the pitch, 4v4s, 5v5s, 6v6s, and just gave them a basic condition. And I think we've realised, over the past 20 years, that we probably were over-coaching them a little bit too much in England.
Yeah, well, they have to do both. Of course, they have to be coached at a young age, but they also have to be able to use their initiative to work certain things out, because everything that, from a coach's perspective, when you go out there, if it's not working, what I told you to do and what I told is going to happen as a coach, what you're going to do, you can't look to me and say, well, you said this wasn't going to happen. So Liverpool obviously took it to the nth degree, and maybe the English FA in the old days, you know, were the opposite. But I think the balance is very important, because, you know, as I said, when we played football, for example, and you will know as a coach, you'd have to put on, you'd have to then say to the players 2-touch for them to have 2-touch. At Liverpool, we never did.
No.
But we still had 2-touch. So I've been at clubs and even for England, when, you know, you're having 80-sides and you're playing, then also the coach will go 2-touch, so you have 2 touches because you're forced to. Then he goes right free and everybody starts to dribble. In Liverpool, that was never the case. They still play 2-touch because that's the way you play until you get into, obviously, each penalty box. So this is something that you actually learn as you get older, and you have to experience and go through. And because it was the Liverpool way, Liverpool never had to say 2-touch, but they would, even, I remember some new players coming, and then all of a sudden Ronnie Moran would have the players got to have more than 2 touches, and they'd say, yeah, but you said it's free, we can, and you said free, but if you know the Liverpool way, free means 2-touch.
Yeah.
Until you don't have to do it anymore. Whereas it's the other way around.
Yeah.
Players will then take 2-touch when they have to, but when they don't have to, they dribble. Whereas in Liverpool, it was the other way around. You know, we take 2-touch all the time, and when we don't have to, but then when we have to, that's when we dribble.
Now, obviously, you had an illustrious career with Liverpool. You won many, many trophies. You were there for 10 years. Is there one final, is there one league title win, is there something that really sticks out in your memories that you think that was the most enjoyable?
Well, I think 2 things. The biggest lesson I learned when we won the first league championship in my first year, when we beat QPR 1-0, and I came and I expected a huge celebration, and Ronnie Moran had the winners' medals in a bag. He put them on the table, didn't make a song and dance about it. He just said pre-season training July the 5th. Didn't make a song and dance about it because, of course, we won the league, but what is success? Success is the repetition of success by doing it again. And how do you keep that hunger to do it again? Is when you've done it, forget about it. So obviously, that's easy philosophy to have when you're winning. What about when you're losing? And when we lost to Arsenal, last game of the season, came in, losers' medals in a bag, said pre-season training July the 5th. Because had we wallowed in self-pity and despair because we've lost the league in the last minute of the last game of the season, we'd never have raised ourselves to win it like we did the next year. So when you win or when you lose, you give 100% effort, commitment, determination, authenticity in your efforts. And if you win, you win. If you lose, you lose. You know, there are a lot of people who say, well, it doesn't matter if you win. Of course you want to win, but if you give 100% and you lose, there's nothing you can do about that. So I always learned that from the Rudyard Kipling's book about triumph and disaster, a great poem talking about the way you treat those 2 imposters. You can't necessarily, you could play in a cup final and hit the post 20 times, play really win and lose, but you've given it all, so you can't do anything about that. So my whole 10-year period at Liverpool, from a league perspective, the good and the bad, is the most important thing for me. But the one moment I'd say is probably the FA Cup after Hillsborough when we beat Everton, because it was fitting that it was a Merseyside Cup final, Liverpool versus Everton, because Evertonians would have lost loved ones in that as well, because as you know, Liverpool is not a divided city geographically, religiously. Some people support Everton, some Liverpool neighbours, even brothers and sisters. So they would have been hard hit by Hillsborough as well. So it was fitting that it was a Liverpool-Everton Cup final. So those two games, well, the Cup final is probably the singular game. And the biggest lesson I learned was when we won the league for the first time and we lost the league against Arsenal.
That's brilliant. Now, obviously, you blessed to work with many coaches, and you were influenced by a lot of them that you worked with, but also, you know, you've mentioned and have spoke about you were influenced by coaches who were at the club before you. Was there one coach in particular, or one thing that was said to you in your career that really stood out and that really influenced you?
Well, first of all, I think that, you know, when I came to Liverpool, and I've said it all along, I felt I played under Bill Shankly, because what Bill Shankly did, Bob Paisley continued, Joe Fagan continued, Kenny Dalglish continued, so Roy Evans. So it's just a continuation of Bill Shankly. Nothing was new. Nothing changed. I mean, when Graham Souness came, it kind of changed. Then football was changing. Then Houllier came and things changed. But up until that point, Liverpool was just Bill Shankly and what he did. And all the coaches were promoted from within. So therefore, that continued. The lessons he learned, running around was probably because he had a hard time explaining it, because his delivery of his explanations weren't great. So you have to understand Ronnie Pugsy. Just to give an example of the lessons that he taught us. For example, Jim Beglin played left back, and he said to Jim, for corners against, as a fullback, you go on the post defending. So the corner came in and there was a goal, and he said to Jim Beglin, where were you, son? He said, I was on the post. He said, what are you doing there? He said, you told me to go there. And he said to him, yeah, but if I told you to jump in a fire, would you do that? Now, everybody laughs and thinks it's a stupid thing to say, and I suppose if you just take it at face value, it is. But what he's saying to Jim is that I've given an instruction to be on the post. But while you're on the post, if you see danger somewhere and use your initiative to know that that's more dangerous, and you leave the post, although I've told you to be there, they love it when you do that. They love it when you do that, because so many players get away with just being given instructions and just following it to the letter of the law. Meaning if Jim was on the post and he knew 100% that they were going to score, but he's still going to stay on the post, and he stays on the post and they score, and the coach has a go at him, and Jim says, no, but you told me to go on the post, so you can't have a go at me. The Liverpool coaches wouldn't stand for that. They say, you use your initiative. So, you know, these are the lessons that you learn at Liverpool. More than any other club, they allow you to use your initiative, which is why they look at you for the years and they say, have you got that initiative? Do you have that experience to do that? Rather than us having to coach it into you. And there's so many good players who've come to Liverpool, and if you don't learn that Liverpool way, no matter how good you are, you won't make it.
Yeah. Now, one of the final ones I want to finish on before we go to our next break is, obviously, you know, Shankly instilled a lot into the club. We obviously have gone through a bit of a period before Jurgen Klopp joined us where we weren't so successful again. I feel like Klopp sort of taught us a little bit about how to win again and brought that winning mentality back. Do you think there's a lot of talk, and I see it from a fan's point of view, you see a lot of negative talk about Klopp's gone, it's the end of the world, it's going to be another 5 years before we win a trophy? Or do you think it's not going to be that bad, and do you think Klopp's installed some of the winning culture back into the club, and do you think Arnie will bounce off that?
Absolutely. I mean, after Bill Shankly left, Bob Paisley took over, and he was infinitely more successful than Bill Shankly. It was easier for Bob because Bill Shankly started it, and it's always easier to start a revolution than to continue it. Yeah. Because starting is always difficult, so I still put him ahead of Bob Paisley in that respect, although Bob Paisley's won more trophies, infinitely more than him. Jurgen started something again, but it's going to be different now, because obviously after Bill Shankly, everything continued the same. Promotion from within. It went to Bob Paisley, to Joe Fagan, to Kenny Dalglish, to the training methods, the staff, everything stayed the same. Things are going to change. Because Jurgen now, you know, the way that he had Liverpool in the last 9 years, if he was going to promote from within and it's going to be a student of Jurgen and things are going to be the same, the methods, then, you know, it will just continue. Whereas it's the unknown, because it's going to be new, because Arne Slot is different to Jurgen. He's going to bring a new system, a new philosophy to the team. We're not going to be playing as heavy metal football, as dynamic as Jurgen. We're going to be more considered. Extra passes in midfield, probably play a bit more on possession, a little bit more quality in our deliveries, rather than just, you know, getting forward, up and down. You could look at the nature of the midfield players; they're more technical. But the quality of the players, and more importantly, the character of the players, is good. Which means that, you know, you've seen it in the past when Fergie left, when Arsene Wenger left, when Mourinho left Chelsea, that all of a sudden the players then dropped a level because the players responded to those managers, and a new manager coming in, they don't respond to because they know if we lose, the fans are going to not boo us, they're going to boo the players, whereas the Liverpool players are good characters.
Yeah.
And Jurgen has already started singing out his name straight away, so I think that the characters that Liverpool have will be respectful enough to Ard, who then go, yes, we love Jurgen, remember him, but whatever you want us to do, we're going to do. So I've seen those signs on pre-season that they will give 100% effort to try and now make it the Arne Slot way.
Your opinion for the season ahead? Do you think they've got enough to get that Champions League place again?
Oh, absolutely, to get a Champions League place. Yeah, I mean, you know, I think it's between, once again, the top three: Man City, Arsenal, and Liverpool. I think Liverpool would be more consistent than we were last year. We had a lot of injuries and, you know, a few new players. So I think we'll be pushing, but I have no doubt we'll definitely be in the top four.
Amazing. Now, we're about to go to our next ad break, and through the magic of technology, we're going to magically fly all the way from Houston to LA. Once we pick up our final little section of this podcast, we're going to speak to John about post-playing, coaching, and then also what he's doing in television and currently what he's up to. Watch this ad break, and we'll be back with you very soon.
Would you like to make it as a professional footballer? My friend Ray Wood has written this amazing book, The Pro Player Pathway, that gives you the secret to becoming a professional.
Hi everyone, welcome back to the final segment of this podcast with John Barnes. Now, we've been in 2 cities, and through the magic of technology, we've just travelled from Houston all the way to Los Angeles. John, welcome back. Safe travels from Houston. Sweaty again. The temperature in the US at the moment, it's summertime here. It's been really, really hot. Now, we spoke a little bit about your career before you made it as a pro. We've spoken a little bit about Watford, Liverpool and England. We want to talk a little bit now for our listeners out there who know you and who don't know you. What happened once you finished up at Charlton, I believe it was, and then how you did you start to do your coaching badges, and was that something that you really aspired to do?
Well, of course, straight after I left Charlton, I became a coach. I'd just done my B badge. But of course, Kenny then phoned me, Kenny Dalglish, and said, would I like to come as head coach of Celtic? So when I didn't finish all my badges, the opportunity came, so I jumped at it. Because, of course, I had been influenced by, first of all, Graham Taylor, in the way that he approached football in terms of his, and we spoke about it earlier, his ability to understand tactics, systems, player position, regardless of you as an individual. How do you interact with the team by understanding the direction that players have to go in a real coaching environment? Obviously, from Liverpool, we didn't do any coaching, as you know, but so I kind of like married the both, because all my thoughts on football was understanding how you want your team to play and then getting players to fit into that system. Football at that time, this was 1999, it was just about getting the best players. So when I went to Celtic and tried to implement a style and a system that's, and then get to the players to understand each position has a requirement in relation to the other positions, football back then was about, let's just get good players and go and play. So that didn't work out. Then I coached the Jamaica national team very successfully. We never lost one game. We had 13 games, won 11, drew 2. But politics in Caribbean football, as it was, meant that I didn't continue with that. But I've always loved coaching, and that's what I wanted to do. At the same time, I was also doing in the media. I worked in Sky, I worked in ITV at the time in football. So I've been doing that a lot. And of course, in the last couple of years, I've been an ambassador for Liverpool. But before that, I was always doing a lot of work for Liverpool, not as a full-time ambassador, but now that's really what takes up most of my time, ambassadorial work for Liverpool.
When you said you'd done your B licence when you were at Charlton, but then obviously I take it you went on under your A licence eventually?
Well, no, I didn't, because by the time I was then coaching, and then I went to Celtic, then I went straight to Jamaica. So by the time that finished, I just went into the media, so I didn't continue in the coaching.
How did you find it, the transition from being one of the superstar players over that prior decade to all of a sudden then at the helm of like one of the biggest clubs? Was it an easy transition, or was it hard? Or?
Well, it was very hard because, of course, first of all, I am not from Scotland, and of course the Celtic Rangers situation whereby they like their own, and of course Rangers were the better team at that particular time. They were spending lots of money and we weren't. So I actually had I had quite a good win percentage at Celtic. My win percentage at Celtic was 65%. Steven Gerrard, who had a fantastic time at Rangers, his win percentage at Rangers was 63% over the 4 years. So once you have a perception as to what's failure and what's success, that didn't work out. But I didn't find the transition particularly hard, because I've always thought about coaching and thought that way when I played football anyway, in terms of how the team performs. But unfortunately, when people have a misconception of you, then, in many respects, you are beholden to other people rather than just yourself.
Now, obviously, we've got a lot of parents on our programs who, a lot of them in Australia and the USA, are actual coaches and aspiring coaches. Was there a challenging moment that you can think back to when you was coaching, whether it be at Charlton or Celtic or Jamaica, and how did you overcome that challenge?
Well, challenging moments for me at Celtic, where you're playing with, or you're coaching and managing international players with big egos, is different to you coaching an under-12 team in Australia.
Yeah.
Because I'm sure those under-12 kids will be much more receptive to their coaches than, superstars at Celtic. So, of course, the challenge for me was the fact that I hadn't coached before, and I've just recently retired, and I'm at a huge club, and a lot of people felt, well, you shouldn't be here because you haven't been through the system. You haven't done any coaching before. So those were the challenges, the perception people had of me. And of course, you see that now throughout Premier League football. Because as I said, apart from Jurgen Klopp, Pep Guardiola, and now Mikel Arteta, every manager has a challenge because the players seem to be more powerful than the managers. Yeah. So until that situation is going to be reversed, whereby the managers are now given the respect by the fans and the players, which happens more in England than other countries, it's always going to be difficult for managers.
So then rolling on to punditry works, you said that obviously, I can remember, you worked on Sky, you've worked on ITV. Was that really enjoyable for you, and was that something that you really embraced, or is it a really difficult role? What's it like being on the TV?
That's an easy role.
It's an easy role
because all you have to do is talk about what you see, talk about football, and what you do as a pundit is you always, after the event, say what should have been done. Yeah. As a coach, you've got to say all of that before, because of course, as a pundit, you look at a game, it's in a bad position, it's a wrong goal, mistimed tackle, whatever, bad position. After, you can say that because you can see it. If you understand football, it's easy to do that. Yeah. Whereas from a coaching perspective, you have to do all of that before the game and let people know what they have to do. So I found punditry very easy, and I still do. But I would still love to coach because that's what we want to do. But punditry is a way of keeping involved in football. But no, it's not a difficult thing at all.
With the punditry, one of the questions I really want to ask you, and this is a personal one for me, are they telling you what you can and can't say? And also, the second end of that question as well, is it really tricky that, you find yourself you can't be too biased to, like, say, Watford or Liverpool because they're your ex-clubs? Or do they tell you can't be too biased towards them? How does that work?
No, they don't tell you. You have to be who you are. And I think that if you're constructive in your criticism, as much as I'm an ambassador of Liverpool and Liverpool's my club, I will be honest about it. Yeah. But unfortunately, what happens, a lot of pundits, they get carried away one way or the other. So I would never, ever go and criticize a player for being in a bad position or missing an open goal, because I've been there, I've missed an open goal. Yeah. So, of course, you can then say you should concentrate more, get ahead over the ball. But you have pundits going, no, you should never do that because it's a disgrace, because he's missed an open goal and that should never happen because you're a professional, So therefore, and unfortunately, they're the pundits who actually make it, the ones who are overly critical. So I think you can be constructive in your criticism if you're honest. Yeah. And as I said, I've missed open goals. I know how easy it is to miss an open goal. So I would never ever go and say you should never miss an open goal.
Yeah. And going back to coaching, obviously you just touched on maybe the potential of going into coaching again. And are you doing anything more with your coaching badges or education and learning at the moment, or?
Well, I haven't got time. I've got 7 children. I'm walking around, I'm working, I'm doing all kinds. No, so at that moment in time, when I'm still doing what I'm doing, that has to take a back seat.
But coaching role potentially could still be on the cards in the future if the right opportunity comes.
If an opportunity comes, an opportunity doesn't come by very often. Yeah. And there are many reasons for that, which if I have an hour in the podcast, I can tell you. But of course, yes. So of course, I'm still on the lookout. But of course, they are few and far between.
So we're just talking about obviously going into coaching and that, and obviously you're still very relatively young. There's a lot of coaches, like a Carlo Ancelotti's getting closer to 80 now, and he's still going really, really well. Is that obviously something that you think maybe as your life maybe gets a bit quieter and as the kids get older, it could be something that you really pursue?
Well, of course, once again, it depends on the opportunity. But of course, Carlo Ancelotti may be getting older, but he has been in it for the last 30, 40 years. Yeah. It's going to be relatively new for me because I coached in 1999 and then coached Jamaica in 2007, Tranmere in 2009. So it's been 14, 15, 16 years. Yeah. Whereas Carlos continued throughout. So it's difficult for me now at my age. But of course, you can never say never.
Now, one of the big things to finish on before we finish the podcast, we always get our players in the room and parents as well to write down the one big scary goal for the next 5 to 10 years. Have you got a big scary goal that you'd like to achieve or do? Is it whether it be something to do with your family or something on a personal level with work or business? Is there anything that you've got planned for the future?
Well, at my age now, there are no scary goals ahead. The scary goal ahead is just to try and stay healthy.
John, a big thank you. It's been amazing. We're so blessed to have you with us on this tour in the USA and Canada. And I know not just Liverpool fans, but football fans around the world are going to cherish this podcast. And a big thank you for me and the guys at Euro Football Star.
It's a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Hi everyone, this is Raymond Wood at the Raymond Wood Podcast. We're excited to be back with another podcast. Now, over the past couple of weeks, we've had ex-famous football players, coaches, and also from time to time, we bring on players who are currently on our professional player pathway program. Now, we've got a player online with us this evening. I'm going to introduce you to a young gentleman who's a fantastic football player, has got a lot of potential to go really far with his career. We've got Lockie Olsen with us. How are you, Lockie?
Good, thanks, Ray. Yourself?
Yeah, very good, very good. So thank you for joining us. So we're bringing you onto the podcast because we've got some exciting news that we want to announce and share with the world, everyone who follows us on our socials, and also a little bit of an update on you and your program. So before we get into it, I think we'll start straight off the bat. When did you first join us on the program?
It was towards the end of last year, so around like October of 2023.
October 2023. Where was the event that you come in for the Pro Player Pathway? Can you remember where it was?
My dad went to it. I think it was in Sydney.
In Sydney, amazing. And you are currently based, where are you based at the moment? Where do you live?
So I'm on the Central Coast. It's kind of in between Sydney and Newcastle.
Sydney and Newcastle. So for all of our listeners who are aware of our program, the Pro Player Pathway, we run events globally all around the world, and we offer scholarships to players to come and join us to work on our full-time program, which has got 7 pillars attached to it. And then the idea is to try and get players opportunities overseas to the UK and to Europe. So you've been with us for just over 6 months, and there's 7 pillars to the program. Can you explain to the listeners watching and listening in, what's your favourite pillar of the programme, and why is it your favourite pillar?
I would say the opportunity to trial overseas.
The trial's the big one.
Yeah, for sure. It's just an amazing opportunity. It's quite crazy to me how like something like that can happen just for anyone, really.
Yeah, it's one of the big things that we decided when we set up. We've seen there was a lot of problems, not just in Australia, but also in the USA and Canada, where there's a lot of trial opportunities getting put forward for players, and it costs a lot of money, but there's no preparation to prepare the players. And that's one of the big things that we spotted, that we could do a lot of the work with yourself and with the players and get you prepared, ready. So then when you go over for opportunities, you stand a way better chance of being successful. So obviously you had Dad, who was part of getting you signed up to the program, and it must have been a dream come true when you first heard about the program, that there was this opportunity to not only work full time with myself and with some of the professional coaches, but also to get that once in a lifetime opportunity to not only get a trial, but to be guaranteed a scholarship as well.
Yeah, for sure. And like you said, the support that you guys give the players leading up to the trial is just super important, and I think it'll definitely aid my success in the future.
Will, most definitely. Now, Lockie, let's talk football. Who's your favourite football team?
Manchester United.
Oh, we won't hold that against you. That's all right. So Manchester United are going really well in the summer. They've got quite a few signings already over the line. Is there anyone that you really particularly looking forward to watching in the new season?
I think the youngster Kobe Manu has come up through the academy. I think he's a very good player here.
Yeah, he has a very good summer as well with England in the Euros as well, and nearly won the Euros with England. They just missed out on that final game against Spain. But yeah, I think he's going to be a pivotal player, I think, for Manchester United in the new season. So what age were you, Lockie, when you first started playing football? What's your first memory of playing football? Can you remember how old you was roughly?
Would have been 3 or 4 maybe years old, just in the backyard, kicking a ball around with my dad.
Just you and Dad having a kick, and that's how it normally starts, doesn't it? What age do you think you can remember when you're thinking, I'd actually really like to play professional football? Do you remember when you first maybe thought of that?
That's always been my dream, to be a professional footballer, but I think around the under 11 or under 12 age group, I really started to like desire that for myself when I'm older, and yeah.
Now, obviously, once you started to think like that when you were 10 and 11, obviously, before you got on this program, did you seem like it was a pretty hard task to achieve to become a professional player, or did you think it was going to be relatively easy? What was your thought before you come on the program?
So yeah, before I came on the program, it definitely looked like it was going to be a road of lots of hard work, and you know, the chances just say it's not going to like happen that often for a lot of like young kids who are just working hard in their backyard and whatnot. So yeah, I was prepared to do whatever it takes, but I knew it was going to be hard.
Yeah, any road's hard. It doesn't matter what you're trying to achieve. But one of the things that we recognise as well, not just in Australia, but in places like the USA, Canada, the Middle East, is that there isn't that direct pathway for football. Like when you live in the UK or Europe, you can definitely see there's a pathway. There's definitely a route you can follow and to get into the system. But it is a lot harder. And that was one of the things that used to upset me living in Australia for 18 years on and off, was that there wasn't a real opportunity for you boys and girls in Australia to even understand how to make the first step to make it as a professional. Now, if we talk a little bit about, we roll on, how old are you now? You are
15, so I'm 15 in November.
So 16 in November. So rolling on from 10 and 11, 5 or 6 years later, you're now on the program. You've been on the program now. For those boys and girls and mums and dads who are listening to the podcast and don't know anything about our program, one of the first touch points that we do with all the players is a match analysis. Now, I take it you've done your match analysis?
No, actually, we haven't been able to get footage, but I was actually going to get Mum to film my game this weekend. So
amazing. Well, that's exciting, because for those who are listening in, the beauty about getting the match analysis completed is that we draw out those objectives for you, and we can start to push it in that right direction. So that must be exciting, knowing that you are about to get your match analysis completed and you've got to get your video submitted. So is it going to be an up-and-coming game that you're going to get recorded in the next couple of weeks, is it?
Definitely. I have one this Saturday where it's a home game, so my mum will be there for the whole match. And I have around just a few more games in my season. Since I started to play for my school, our season's a little shorter, but yeah, I'll definitely be able to film a few games, which is super exciting.
That's going to be good, and then we'll get you connected with one of our professional coaches and get that match analysis completed. That's one of the key areas that we need to get done. So once you've got your objectives, you can start working on them and preparing for your trial opportunity next January. Now, in relation to some of the other pillars, one of the other pillars is obviously the GPS tracker. Have you been wearing the tracker for training and games over the past couple of months?
Yeah. For I think since pre-season in January, I've been wearing it, and it's just so useful. I think it's essential for footballers, because really you can track things like heart rate, how far you run in a game, how fast you run in a game. So it's definitely good for improvement in your game, and yeah.
That's amazing. It's another big key one that we introduced into Europe and into the Premier League probably about 15, 20 years ago when the first GPS trackers come around. And one of the big problems we had was, like with anything, it was very, very expensive to get the kit and equipment. But now with the prices coming down, it was an essential part to our program to get added in. And as you just alluded to, for all of our listeners listening in, the reason why we have the GPS tracker is not only does it record, as Lockie just mentioned, distance run, acceleration, deceleration, how many sprints you do in a session. It allows us to actually compare our players with players against who are playing in Europe and the UK, because we've got all the stats and data from those players across there, and it allows us to show you that where our players are maybe in Australia or the USA, wherever they're based, against the players in Europe, so we know where we need to bring it up. So you've been using that since January. That's amazing. And you're pretty much using it for as many sessions a week as you can.
Yeah.
What's one of the big things that you think you've learned from the GPS tracker? Is it taught you anything in particular?
Yes, actually, when the stats on the GPS tracker were like maybe better than in comparison to another session, I could definitely see that the session with the greatest stats was a better session, and I played better in that session. So, for example, distance ran in a session, since I'm a midfielder, that's maybe one of the most important ones in my game. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's good. And have you noticed over since January that you're progressively getting better with some of your stats and that? You're keeping an eye on like your sprints and your distance covered?
Yeah, it's been slow. For the first few months, it was kind of just the same, but then I did start to focus on improving those stats, and they're just getting better and better each week.
Now, before we talk about the trials and going to the UK and what you're looking forward to the most, one of the other pillars is our intolerance and DNA test. Have you had our test completed yet, or are you still waiting for that to be completed?
No, I've got the results back from the test, yeah.
Amazing. So just again, for our listeners listening in, one of the pillars out of the 7 pillars is our DNA and intolerance testing. And the reason why we use this is to try and reduce the amount of inflammation that goes on in players' bodies, and also to make sure that the digestive system is not spending too much time digesting food and drink that it doesn't want to digest because it's not tolerable for that particular body. So it's an individual test. So lucky to walk through, for no one who's ever seen one of these tests, what did you have to do to get your test results? How was it tested?
So first I had to snip off a few inches of my hair, and then I'd put it in a Ziploc bag, and I would mail it over to an intolerance testing company in Queensland or something, and they'd do the test and they'd just send me the results back, and yeah.
Amazing. So how long did that take from when you cut your hair to getting your results back? Was it a few months or a few weeks, or?
It was around 4 or 5 weeks before I got the results back.
That's not too long. And obviously, when you got the results back, were you excited to see what you could and couldn't eat? And what was the anticipation like when you got the results back?
Yeah, I definitely thought it'd be interesting, and I was actually super surprised with some of the foods that I used to eat daily. Turns out they were not good for me at all. And yeah, I've started eating substitute foods instead of those each day. So yeah.
Amazing. So for everyone again listening in, with the DNA and intolerance test, it flags a report back to all the players and individual reports based off the DNA sample from the hair. And in black is everything that they can eat and drink, and then it flags up any items in red. And the advice from that test result is to give that particular type of food or drink a bit of a rest for 6 months. What were some of the things in there that were flagged up against you that you normally were eating, but it told you it didn't want you to eat?
Yeah, so there was things like cow's milk, chocolate. There was some types of pasta that I couldn't eat, and they were the main ones. Yeah.
Is there anything in particular on there that really upset you, that you were like, damn, I can't believe I've got to have a break from that? Was there anything that you really miss?
It's definitely the chocolate and milk, definitely.
I was the same when I got my test done. I don't know if you remember from the presentation, but I think it was Cadbury's, chocolate, milk, cheese, bread. It was all completely wiped off my schedule as well. Now, I know from my personal point of view, when I got my test done, was when we first considered to bring this on board for the players. I wanted to test it to see how good it was and if it made a difference. And I'll be honest, since I've started following my results, like things I'm not allowed to eat is chocolate, eggs, cheese, bacon. I've removed all of these items from my day-to-day life 99% of the time. And I've noticed like not only like weight loss, and it wasn't done for weight loss, it was done just to give it a try, but weight loss, skin, nails are growing really long all the time. Have you noticed anything since you made the changes that was for the benefit?
Yeah, so before I got the test done, I had like some like brain fog, you could say. And, 3 months later or 4 or 5 months later, it's all gone now. And yeah, I think it's super clear. And that would definitely help on the football pitch. So
yeah, it was a big one when we first discovered it, and they started introducing these tests in the Premier League. And with some of the top teams around Europe, was that they found it got rid of headaches, migraines, brain fog, congestion in the throat, because there's a lot of congestion and phlegm that gets built up from particular foods like milk and dairy products particularly. But what was really interesting as well is that about 70% of our players actually flag up for chicken as well, so they've got to take chicken out the diet. Is chicken okay on your foods, or?
Yeah, chicken was fine. There were no meats that were bad for me. It was mainly just like dairy, and yeah, it was mainly dairy, to be honest.
That's amazing. So that's another big one, I suppose, for you in your journey, that maybe this time 9 months ago, you didn't have the GPS tracker, you didn't have your objectives, which you're going to do for your match analysis, but also you wasn't even aware that like this was causing a bit of a brain fog in regards to your nutrition. So you must feel like in a better position now that it is possible to make it and play professional football. Now you are actually training daily like a professional football player.
Yeah, it's just totally different. I would never have expected to feel like how I'm feeling right now, like 9-10 months ago. It's just great, really.
I'm super excited for you to get your match analysis done, so really looking forward to see that happen in the next couple of weeks, and we'll get you linked up with one of our coaches. So again, for mums and dads and players listening into the podcast, one of the pillars of the program, we actually get a match analysis completed. It goes off to Portugal. We get our top analysts in Portugal to analyse the game. And these analysts actually do match analysis for clubs like Manchester City, Manchester United, Liverpool, Real Madrid, all the big clubs in Europe. We get an individual match analysis completed for our players. It then gets sent back to us. We then over-analyse the top of it with one of our professional coaches who's based in the UK. So we've got coaches based at a lot of the big clubs in Europe and the UK. They'll then connect with Lockie on a Zoom call. They'll spend about an hour with Locke going through his match analysis, going through his match objectives. And those match objectives then get put into his football plan, which is our web-based portal. And then once he's got his objectives in there, he can then start working to better himself as a player. So it's going to be super exciting to get that done. Now, before we finish off, Lockie, we've got about 5 or 6 minutes to go, if you're okay just to hang with us for a few more minutes. Now, we're talking about trials. You're going to the UK in January. What's the one thing that you're really looking forward to about this opportunity through the programme?
I think it's just a different environment to what I've ever been in. So I'm excited to be exposed to that, and I'll be able to learn off that and improve from, that new environment I've been put in. I also am excited to showcase my talent to some really experienced coaches over there in the UK, and yep, that's it.
That's amazing. So again, for everyone who's listening, we set up these trial opportunities. We go to the UK in January every year. We also go to Spain, to Barcelona, and to Paris Saint-Germain in France every June, July. Part of that is that we open up opportunities at private academies, sometimes professional clubs. And then it's all about getting the players to be able to showcase themselves in front of these high-level coaches. But also, one of the big things that Lockie's just alluded to is actually pitting yourself against the players in Europe and the UK, pitting yourself against the best players on the planet and the ones who are currently in the system. Now, we've been quite successful over the years. We've had in excess of 20 players who've been offered some form of scholarship to stay and live in the UK and in Europe and to play and train there full time. So obviously there's going to be an opportunity for every player who goes on the trial Lockie to be offered some type of scholarship to stay and play football in the UK and Europe. When you get your opportunity, do you think that's something that you might consider when maybe you're 16 or 17 or 18, is something that you think you might take on, or do you think it's a bit too scary to make that jump too early? What's your thoughts?
Well, I'm definitely prepared to, sacrifice a comfortable life just for that opportunity to play football in the UK. So really depends on some other things, but I think, yeah, it's definitely an option to take that scholarship and play over there.
That's amazing. Now, I know there's a lot of things that you've got to think about, and mums and dads do as well, everyone who's listening in. Obviously, where they're going to be based, what club or academy they sign for, but also the big thing that's really important to us, and before we introduce this as a pillar to the programme, is also having that education support for the players as well. So part of the scholarship opportunities for the players is that we're able to offer education with this as well. So as an example, if you were to sign for, let's say it was Manchester United, then we need to make sure that you've got your school attached to that as well, because it's so important that you've got a plan B and a plan C in the event your football doesn't turn out the way you would like it to over the next couple of years. So does that excite you as well, knowing that not only are you going to also get the opportunity to maybe play and train full time in the UK, but you could also do some schooling, some coaching badges, and you'll have a multitude of options within the game of football by the end of the 2-year scholarship.
Yeah, it makes me feel really secure, and I think feeling secure is definitely a key to also performing in those trials. I know if I don't perform well, then I still have some form of backup that I can lean on.
Yeah, that is absolutely fantastic. Now, finally, to finish off, what's your big dream, Lockie? So if you could have anything you wanted within your football dream and vision, who would you be playing for? What position would you be playing? Would it be Spain? Would it be England? Tell everyone.
So my dream, in the best case scenario, I would be playing as a 10, so as an attacking midfielder for I'd say as an attacking midfielder for Manchester United. I'd have a long career over there, and then after my career is finished, I would pick up a job in some type of sports science. I think that really interests me.
That was the final question I was going to finish off. So when your football career is over, I was going to ask you, is it physio, is it sports science, is it coaching, is it management? So you'd like to be to maybe be involved in the sports science area of football?
Yeah, so after, if I finish playing, I would definitely like to stay in the scene of football. Yeah, it'd be great.
That's amazing. That's fantastic. Well, Lockie, a big thank you for joining me and everyone who watches and listens in to the Ravenswood podcast. We are super excited to get your match analysis done. We're super excited to see how you're going to progress in the next 6 months, and we're finally super excited to give you an opportunity to go to England. Now, just to finish off, for any boys and girls out there who are listening in or watching on YouTube and are interested in joining the professional player pathway, would you recommend the programme to anyone who's keen to make it as a football player?
Yeah, if it's your dream, if it's really what you want to do, definitely take it, because it's a great opportunity. Yeah.
Amazing. Well, that's a big thank you from me and Lockie from the Ravenswood podcast, and we look forward to joining you and seeing you and listening to you on our next episode at the Ravenswood podcast. A big thank you from me
I'm Lockie Olsen, and we wish Lockie all the best of luck for the future with his football. Thanks very much, Lockie, for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Ray.
Hi everyone, this is Raymond Wood at the Raymond Wood podcast. We are super excited to do another episode. Now I'm with my very good friend, Mr. Kai Henning. How are you, Kai?
I'm very good, Ray. How are you?
Very good. Now we'll explain to all our listeners, anyone who's listening in and anyone who's watching on YouTube, a little bit of a backstory. So we've been involved with you and your football, I think it's for 3 or 4 years. Yes. And when you first come to us, how did you first meet with me and how did you first meet with Euro Football Star?
So we first met at some trials. You did some training.
Objective testing?
Yes. And yeah.
It went from there, didn't it?
Yeah.
Now we'll get straight into it because I know anyone who's watching this on YouTube, and if you're not watching it on YouTube, you might want to start maybe watching some of our podcast episodes because you'll actually see that Kai Henning's wearing a beautiful jacket from Steven Gerrard's Academy in Liverpool in England. So you've been at Steven Gerrard's Academy for how long now?
2 years now.
2 years. And you were just telling me you got some good news that you got extended by another year.
Yes, I'm staying there another year. They've asked me to come back for another year. So yeah.
That's fantastic. Now, we'll go all the way back to the start of the journey because when we got you through our objective testing, it was just on the cusp of coming out of COVID, and also it was when we were just putting our professional player pathway program together where we wanted to start to open up opportunities